All we've got to do now is to start pumping.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fully Inflated Football Podcast. It is good to be back after multiple months. As most of you that have followed the podcast know, over the course of the summer, my deep dive series really overtakes any sort of weekly ability to put this podcast out. And with my Euro trip this year and moving to Charlotte, I completely ran out of time to get to any sort of mailbag questions from you guys on Patreon, submitting those weekly mailbag questions. So I do apologize that those went left unnoticed, but we are back. It is so good to be back. We've got our week one reactions show here, and I will be picking things back up with mailbag shows as well. So Patreon, you can start resubmitting those questions. If you are a member, we'll be getting back into that not too far from now. But one other thing is you might be watching this podcast for the very first time because I am sharing this here on my main YouTube channel. I'm not going to be doing that every single week. So if you enjoy the weekly game recap analysis and want to follow the podcast, do make sure you subscribe to the Fully Inflated Football Podcast YouTube channel. You can click that on the screen right here. You can check it in the description below. You can type it in wherever you need to find it. It is easily available for you. And also the audio version is, of course, up if you just search Fully Inflated Football, wherever that is that you get your podcasts. But let's go ahead and recap the first week of football action. We're going to go game by game, no specific order here, but I did want to start with the Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. Probably the most fun game of the weekend. There was a lot of fun games, though, but this one was definitely entertaining. Wanted to hit on this one first, and we'll start on the Colts side of things. They do lose this game, but really won this game in their hearts, in the sense that, you know, you feel pretty good about Anthony Richardson. This could have gone in so many different directions, right? Coming off of, call it a medical redshirt rookie season that it felt like we hardly got a chance to even really get to know Anthony Richardson. In so many ways, this was his rookie debut. He's only 23 years old. Like, this could have gone in so many different directions. He could have honestly come out and kind of stunk. He could have come out and just absolutely torn it up. I don't think it was either of those, but you definitely walked out of this feeling like, all right, he's got it. He knows what he's doing in there. And you've got a lot to build upon from here to get really excited about, even though they lost this game to the divisional favorite Texans in their first game of the season. And with Richardson, we mentioned that first season, the 4 games or whatever we got from him, we just didn't really get to see too much. But going back to those games and now watching this game, this really felt like the first time that it truly felt like Richardson was an alien amongst men playing on the football field. Something about his tape last year, he didn't seem like this most athletic quarterback prospect ever to step on the field. I honestly think his scrambling, his designed runs, his just ability to physically impose himself, whether that was the speed, the just, vision and running creativity, the power, it all actually was a little bit underwhelming in his first stages in the NFL. But in this game, he looked insanely explosive. And I don't know if it's a confidence thing, if he was maybe a little banged up, if I just wasn't seeing it and my eyes were fooling me, or if he has gotten even faster and stronger this offseason. Whatever the answer to that might be, I'm just telling you, me watching this game was the first time my jaw dropped seeing Anthony Richardson, the athlete, out there. He had so many impressive runs in this game. And I do think he really was, when he would start to run, it felt much more like he was committing to it. He was putting his head down, running his feet, and accelerating away from defenders. Whereas last year, it again just didn't feel that way. And that, I think, really was felt in this game. He had so many impactful designed runs and scrambles as well, where it just provided a huge problem for the Texans defense. And then the other side of this is he's not just, the guy that had the best testing score ever for a quarterback. He also has an elite arm in terms of arm strength that also has this rapid, like flick of the wrist, almost Aaron Rodgers-esque release. And we saw that get put to use multiple times in this game. There was the big touchdown throw to Alec Pierce that everyone's going to remember. It's going to be one of the throws of the year here from week one. Kind of drifting back in the pocket, about to get hit, damn near off his back foot, launches this thing 65 yards. It's a post. Alec Pierce is running a post against quarters coverage, which a lot of times that actually is a route that eventually gets open because these outside corners are trying to keep outside leverage, and these safeties are kind of sitting around 15, 20 yards. They're ready to kind of jump anything that crosses in front of their face or that stops underneath them or anything that comes across from the other side of the field. But if you're running a post into quarters, if you see the right leverage and let that thing really fly to a guy that can burn like Alec Pierce, it can be a really advantageous throw to make, but it's not easy to do. You need the right wide receiver, and you need the right quarterback that can really launch that thing over the top, because it does become very tough for the corner to catch up from outside leverage, and for a safety, in this case Jimmy Ward, who's 32 years old, who's potentially kind of waiting to squat down on anything around 20 yards. It's really hard for that guy to turn and run with Alec Pierce, who's in a full sprint. So they take advantage of that, and the throw was just undeniably gorgeous, on the money too. Like I've always said with Anthony Richardson, and I'll talk about some of his inaccuracies in this game. He's not an overall accurate passer, but he can absolutely throw dimes. And this was, definitely a flash of like, okay, if this can start to come together and you put these types of impact plays on top of it, it's going to get Josh Allen-y pretty quick here, is the way I would describe what we're seeing here. But there was another throw too. And I'm going to talk about some of his deficiencies in this game too. I know there's your Anthony Richardson haters too that are waiting on me to talk about where he wasn't perfect in this game. But he had another touchdown pass in this game to Ashton Doolin on an inbreaker. And it was the perfect example for me of why Anthony Richardson doesn't have to necessarily get to a point where he has, top 5, top 10 processing, anticipation, timing. It still is going to have to be pretty good, and I think that was another part of this game. His overall execution of the offense was pretty good. There weren't really any horrible reads or anything like that, but it doesn't have to be perfect. You can have a play like this where Doolin's running the inbreaker. There is a window there between an intermediate defender and an outside defender, converging on that space on this dig route. And Richardson probably throws it, a quarter second later than your typical average quarterback would in the NFL. But because he's got this snappy flick of the wrist release and the velocity on his ball is so good that it plays catch up for where a normal throw would be, right? And that's an area where that arm strength and that release really does matter. And he ends up hitting Doolin in stride just before that defender can get there. The linebacker or the buzz safety, whoever was in that hook zone, kind of lays out for it, tries to get the pass deflection because he's probably used to a normal ball and charted the angle in his brain and was like, okay, I think I can lay out for this thing and get a pass deflection. But that ball was screaming, and he gets it in there. Doolin catches it in stride, and he outruns the defense for a touchdown. So the physical traits from Anthony Richardson were on full display, and he brought enough to the table in terms of processing, decision-making on those plays to maximize those strengths. Really exciting starting point for Richardson. Now, as we said in the Colts deep dive, these accuracy issues are still here, and they ultimately lost this game as well. Well, I don't want to say that because, Richardson was a big reason why they were in this game, but they would have won this game if Anthony Richardson didn't leave so much meat on the bones with some of these inaccurate throws. Ironically, all three of the most inaccurate passes from him in this game were to Adonai Mitchell, who could have had a glorious rookie breakout first game of his career. 3 passes in this game. He had him up the sideline on a double move. He beats Derek Stingley on a double move, has probably 10 yards of separation. He could have, squatted down and backwards bear crawled into the end zone. He was so open. And Richardson just, overcooked it. He sailed it out of bounds, completely botched it. There was another one to the left sideline where Mitchell was screaming down the sideline and Anthony Richardson overthrew it. And then there was another one too. There was a 3rd down. Adonai Mitchell runs a stop route at about 6 yards, and it just completely sailed out of bounds. There was a missed drive from that overthrow too. So for all of the people saying you're stupid, Anthony Richardson doesn't have accuracy issues, it's going to be just fine. Well, no, it's a legitimate weakness in his game. It's been there since Florida. It was all over his rookie tape. Again, as we said in the Colts deep dive, he had the lowest catchable pass percentage, granted in a small sample size last year. This is the thing. This is the thing that you really want to see him improve. If he can't, I think he still has a very high floor that you're excited about for all the reasons we described already. But if he does clean it up, you are talking about kind of the thing Josh Allen became, where, things got better year by year, and now he's second best quarterback in the league. So that's very much in play with Richardson. I thought his pocket presence was really good in this game too, so a lot to be excited about. Again, I think the Colts are winners based on the tape on Anthony Richardson from week 1, even though they lost this game. As for the rest of the Colts team, before we talk about the Texans, the run game really worked, and Richardson obviously ties into that. But I thought Jonathan Taylor looked pretty good. I still don't think, we're seeing that, oh my God, stupid, crazy, explosive version of Jonathan Taylor that we got in 2021 or whatever year that was, where he led the league in rushing. But the vision, the contact balance, a lot of gritty runs from Taylor, not necessarily too many explosive runs. Did have a nice touchdown run. Alec Pierce, big winner from this game. I mean, I'm proud to say that I'll say it. A lot of the echo chamber talk on Alec Pierce is that he's a bust, and Adonai Mitchell is going to make him irrelevant, and you can write him off. And I was like, I don't know. I watched the tape last year. He was getting open. It's just Gardner Minshew was his quarterback and didn't really consider throwing the ball more than 20 yards down the field. I actually think Alec Pierce plays in nicely with all of this, and we saw that this week, right? Pittman actually kind of faded away a little bit. I don't think that's going to continue, but Pittman's their short to intermediate guy. I do think Adonai Mitchell, as he showed in this game, he can kind of beat you in a lot of ways and contribute as a deep threat. But Alec Pierce, as that kind of MVS role in this on this team, can absolutely have a presence to really take the top off, help out the run game, and maximize Richardson's ability on the deep ball. It wasn't just, by the way, the deep post that we talked about, but he kind of mossed a defender for a big catch late in this game. It was a long down and distance. Can't remember if it was 3rd down or 4th down, but Richardson basically just said, screw it, we're down by 10, 4 minutes left. Let's launch this thing and see if Alec Pierce can make a contested catch. And he did. He went over, I think it might have been Lassiter for a big catch that kind of kept them alive in this game. So, if he's putting things together with his confidence and his ball skills, that's just another piece coming together for this offense. I thought the offensive line played great. They didn't pull a 2022 with Matt Ryan where we thought the offensive line was going to be great, and then they just sucked. No steps back for the offensive line, which is great. And then the Colts defense, I don't really have a ton to say about, honestly. I don't think there was any notable performances, really. Latu struggled in his first game against the best pass protecting left tackle in football, Laramie Tunsil, kind of to be expected there. I felt like the Colts pass rush was very dependent on Gus Bradley in this game. They blitzed the ninth most among teams in the league this week, and I don't think their four-man rush was working, so they started running a lot of stunts. I mean, they always run stunts, but their stunts were working, their blitzes were working, but it didn't feel like they could line up with four and win, and that does put a lot of pressure on a so-so secondary. I also will mention they lost Juju Brents for the year. Definitely a bummer. Not that he played great in this game, but year two after year one, he was injured to start the year, got back out there, looked pretty good. He's a nice player. Definitely a bit of a bummer, a lot of a bummer for Colts fans. It's a corner position that they just have really struggled to find any form of stability, and he felt like their best bet at it. So that definitely was a bummer. I would imagine we'll see Dallas Flowers probably back into the lineup as a starter. You got Jalen Jones, who I think can play, so it's not like full-on panic, but definitely a bummer, a young player, second-round pick that they were counting on this year. But let's talk Texans. I mean, C.J. Stroud just continues to blow me away. He's just so smooth, man. Like, he just is in full control, whether it's playing on time or whether the pressure gets in and he has to improvise. Like, the pocket presence, I felt like was flawless in this game. Some of the play extension he had, just this, I will go back to that word, the smooth athleticism. He's not this unbelievably explosive athlete or anything like that, but he's almost as effective as a lot of these guys like Lamar and a guy like Richardson. It's kind of Mahomesian in the sense of like, oh, he's just a little bit, he's always a little bit faster than he needs to be to get out of some of these sacks, and man, he made some throws on the run in this game. It's just super impressive, man, for a guy this young to look as good as he looks. And as long as this continues, we are talking about a quarterback that very quickly will for a guy like me who is slower to raise these young players up, wants to see the sample size, thinks that really matters when you're ranking quarterbacks. We're a half season away from saying, yeah, this is a top 5 quarterback in the league, someone pushing that elite tier. And just as he did in this game, like, he is making plays that is I don't want to say putting the team on his back, but elevating the team and putting them in a position to win basically every single week. He just was so good in this game. So he's just marvelous. But there was a lot of other good to take away from the Texans in this game. I mean, Nico Collins, dude, just might be one of the most underrated players in the league right now. What can't this guy do? I mean, he's, in terms of skill set and efficiency and what he's bringing to the table, it's so weird to say this after how we felt about him just a year ago, where he spent, 3 years in the league and was just kind of a guy. So I think we're all a little still questioning if this is going to keep up, but it's going to keep up. Like, he has it, man. I think from a skill set perspective, he's somewhere around like A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase. I know it sounds crazy to hear those names brought up, but seriously, he gets open deep. He separates deep. He makes incredible catches down the field. He was one of the best run after catch receivers in the league last year. He runs really good routes. He's awesome at the catch point. He had multiple catches in this game, those physical, have to have it, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. Like, hey, you're going to get tight coverage. They know it's coming, but we're running a slant. You got to box the dude out, make a tough catch. Stroud's going to trust you, and he executes. He made a catch to seal this game as well, where he wasn't necessarily open. It was good coverage. But just somehow sees it through, keeps his knee down, really tough catch. I didn't think he got it watching it live, and then watching it back, it's like, man, that was just incredible concentration through contact. Honestly, one of C.J. Stroud's only bad plays in this game, I felt like, was when he just chucked it up to Nico Collins in double coverage, underthrew it a little bit, and Nico made up for it. He works back and Moss's 2 defenders for the catch. So, like, he's insane. He is this team's number 1 wide receiver. And just, I think I would say it's just really great to see, I guess, that he's still doing it after last year was like, is that who he is? Did he just get hot? It's like, no, I think this is who Nico Collins is. He's pushing being a top 5 receiver in this NFL where that's rare territory. So he's insane. And then what about Joe Mixon, dude? Where did that come from? I think Bengals fans are watching this game and they're like, feeling jobbed, feeling screwed. I mean, Joe Mixon looked explosive, the vision, the pass blocking. He stonewalled a blitz. I think it was a defensive end that he stonewalled. But man, that just brought a whole new element to this team because, they were still towards the top in play action last year, even though they were one of the least effective run games in the league. So you actually, I think, felt the Colts having to respect this run game a little bit more, and it opened up those throws for Stroud even more. And just another, wrinkle in this offense that's going to make them so hard to stop, let alone, okay, Stephon Diggs gets brought in the lineup. Seems like he's going to fit in really nicely with how they want to use him. They kind of just moved him around, a lot of short targets, but he gets 2 touchdowns in this game, looked good after the catch. Like, I thought he found a role in this offense where he'll get his targets, but it's not going to take away from Nico Collins and Tank Dell, and they're going to be able to find a way to use all these guys in sync. So just everything was roaring for the offense, really. And one more note, just looking at my notes here, one thing on this offense, too, that I wanted to talk about with Nico Collins is he has that chemistry trait with C.J. Stroud that Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes have. It was there all year last year. There was another huge play in this game, like astronaut, like probably the biggest, given the stakes, the moment in the game. It was in the fourth quarter. It was like a 3rd and 14. Felt like the Colts were starting to wage a bit of a comeback effort here. And C.J. Stroud, 3rd and 14, rolls out. There is nothing there on this play. Stroud is like trying to milk this play down to the very last second. And, right as he's about to get pushed out of bounds, he sees Nico Collins snap off back to the middle of the field in scramble drill. And it's like the second he did it, it's like Stroud was just waiting for Nico to see what he was waiting on. Because I'm talking about like a split second in this play. He is about to get hit. Like, we're talking about a half a second that all this happens. He's about to get hit, pushed out of bounds. The play's going to be over. They're going to have to punt. And he's waiting. Nico takes a step inside, back towards the middle of the field. And the second Stroud sees that half a step, he knows exactly what he's doing. And boom, the ball's out, thrown back into the middle of the field where there's nobody. It's thrown with anticipation because Stroud leads him back into the space in the middle of the field. And they get the 3rd and 14 conversion. It was just like, man, you put all of this, and then you put all this together, and then you put this, honestly, like Travis Kelce, Mahomesian connection on top of it. It's dangerous. So the Texans offense continues to blow me away. Now, the defense, not so much. I mean, there's not really any takeaways from this defense. They didn't have a great game. This edge rush duo that is really the foundation of this defense. It's the edge rush duos, Derek Stingley, and then this kind of motley crew of free agents and mid-round drafted players and all that. The edge rush duo kind of got stonewalled in this game. Didn't really feel Danielle Hunter or Will Anderson at all in this game, so you didn't get that big, like, fulfilling, okay, we got this best edge rush duo in the league coming into the year. And Derek Stingley had a bad game, like straight up. He got beat on that deep post by Alec Pierce. I'm not going to put that on him so much, but he did absolutely get beat on that Adonai Mitchell touchdown, just completely over-aggressive, bit the double move, and it was nowhere to be found. So, you do got to see those superstars play like superstars, because if they don't, the rest of this defense is porous. So I'm not panicking, but it definitely wasn't this like pronounced DeMeco Ryans year 2 of this defense is going to be dominant. And if they keep playing like this, that is going to put a lot of pressure on Stroud and company. All right, before we get to our next game recap here, I do want to tell you guys that Underdog's Pick'em contests are the best way to keep yourself glued to your seat for all of these football matchups, whether it's a crummy Thursday night matchup, a Monday night game that goes into the fourth quarter and it's a blowout, or you just want to spread your player picks out throughout Sunday so you have a little bit to watch for in every single game. With Pick'em contests, you're picking player stats higher or lower, anything from passing yards to fantasy points to fumbles to sacks to tackles. You name it. You can play rivals there where you're pinning one player's stats up against the other. And what's great about Pick'em is these can be very small entries, $2, $3, enough to keep you a little extra invested in these games, but massive payout opportunities, 20 times your money, 25 times your money, depending on the different types of boosts and insurances that you decide to go with. I play Pick'em for virtually every single NFL game that I'm watching, and I think you guys will really enjoy it as well if you're not already playing over at Underdog. And right now, if you sign up using promo code TFG or scan that QR code on the screen right now, you will get a bonus match up to $1,000, a very generous offer from Underdog. But Underdog has also been generous working with me, and if you sign up, you'll support this show, this channel in the process. So that is promo code TFG over at Underdog, and let's get to our next game recap here. And next up, I'm going to go through the primetime games, which I'm gonna go maybe a little bit faster through these. I'm going to operate under the assumption that you guys were all glued to your TV watching these big matchups, but I'll give them their love. Don't worry. It's not going to be a speed round by any stretch of the imagination. But let's rewind to the Thursday night game, first game of the year, my 6th ranked Baltimore Ravens visiting my number 1 ranked Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think we saw anything on a macro scale to really change the way we felt about these teams. But I do have some more, individual player notes and analysis here. And I'll start with Lamar Jackson. And I think Lamar looks more athletic. I do. And for those that followed this podcast throughout the year last year, I'd pointed out like he was balling out, looking good in this pro-style offense and all that, but I didn't think he looked as athletic as old Lamar. I didn't think he had the breakaway speed. I don't think he had quite that acceleration to the sideline. Was obviously still very good in those situations, but not quite like really all that close, honestly, to rookie, sophomore, junior year Lamar, where he looked like, prime Michael Vick, like most athletic quarterback ever, Lamar Jackson. I definitely didn't see that on him last year and the year before, but it sounds like he has slimmed down, and I think it showed. Like, he looked much closer to the old Lamar in terms of that elite athleticism. And another thing we were talking about last year and heading into this year is I think in his first year in a pro-style offense, Lamar exhibited genuinely elite pocket presence. For the first time in his career, he had flashed it, but I think given the offense they played in, more of a play action, under center, gimmicky type of offense, he didn't really get an ability to show it consistently or to develop the consistency when it comes to how he wants to manage the pocket. And I think that really flashed. It didn't flash. It was established last year that that's an elite trait that Lamar has as a quarterback. And now you saw on Thursday night that same trait, managing pressure, escaping sacks, knowing when to step up, when he can settle in, reset his feet, make a throw, when it's necessary for him to scramble, get on the move. All of these things that like that supernatural pocket feel that these elite quarterbacks have, paired now with insane athleticism, it was on full display Thursday night. And I'm actually even more excited for Lamar this year than I was last year, even if, yes, he did not have his best night with his arm. And I've always said, like, his accuracy stuff is real. That's been a drawback for me on Lamar, and maybe I'm not panicking about the missed throws and big spots that he had, because that is baked into my analysis on Lamar. That is part of who he is and who he's been. But I still think they were a little exaggerated on Thursday night in terms of, being your first game of the year in prime time against the Chiefs, and exaggerated in the sense of like there were a lot of them. Whereas if I'm projecting Lamar forward, I don't think he's going to miss that many throws because we're familiar with Lamar. He has a game or two like this throughout the year where it's like, man, you were spraying those balls, and it happened. But at the same time, they were slamming him for choking this game away. A couple missed throws at the end of the game. And for me, it's like, well, the offensive line struggled all night. These receivers aren't really anything special. And he was the only reason they were in a position to win that game. Like, yes, he missed Isaiah Likely for a potential jump ball in the corner of the end zone late in this game. But he was the only reason that they were in the red zone with a chance to win this game late. So I definitely didn't have this like big panic about Lamar or this feeling that I needed to criticize him for an inaccurate pass. Now, if this was the AFC Championship game and it's more of the same in that sense, yeah, the conversation would probably change. But I'm excited for Lamar this year. I think he's going to be in the mix for another MVP type of year, and I thought he played really well. And then you also got to shout out Isaiah Likely. I did say these receivers weren't anything special, but Isaiah Likely is a special football player. And I say football player for a reason, because he's kind of positionless. He's not a true tight end. He's not an outside wide receiver. He's not a slot wide receiver. And he's not really this ridiculous athlete. He's not. He's an undersized tight end. He's an oversized wide receiver. He ran a 4.8 at the combine. I don't think his tape shows like blazing speed. But he just understands what he's doing out there, whether it's, all the little subtleties of the game of football, whether it's knowing he has to box out a corner or that just very subtle hezzy juke for the touchdown where he knows the pursuit angle. He knows he doesn't need to out athleticism this safety that's crashing in on him. He just understands the instincts of it. Okay, if I just step back, this guy's not going to be able to control himself. He's going to fly past me. That's exactly what happened. Just all the little nuances, sitting down in zones, the craftiness in his route running, the physicality to block on the perimeter. He is just a really good football player. Does need to be used in the right way, but they've done that. And for me, it's like he's wide receiver 2 and tight end 1.5, but he's awesome. So if he keeps that up, it's a much needed piece that this team does need, because they're hoping Bateman can step up. Didn't really do that in this game. They draft Tez Walker and Mark Andrews, by the way. I don't know what's going on there. He looked like he was playing on a broken leg because he could not move. And if that's going to be Mark Andrews, they're going to need that explosiveness and those big plays from Isaiah Likely. So got to shout him out. And then I would finish up the Ravens side of things by saying I think my preseason concerns on the Ravens did hold up. It doesn't change my opinion on them, right? Like, people said I ranked them too low at number 6. Like, I've got them 5 now after the Jets lost. Like, it's not like me ranking them there is saying this is a bad football team by any stretch of the imagination, right? It's just like I had some things that I was worried about on them, and I would say many of those came to fruition. I think the offensive line is very much cause for concern. The right guard situation has got to be addressed. I keep wanting to say Jordan Mailata every time, but it's oh my gosh. We're going to get it.
3 hours later.
Okay, I didn't get it. I had to pause and look it up. Daniel Falele. I got to get better at remembering that name because he's a gopher too. But and maybe I don't need to get better at remembering his name because he is heading towards getting benched. That size doesn't work at right guard. He could not keep up with the quickness of these interior rushers. And then it was a win, a week 1 win for me saying I don't trust Roger Rosengarten out the gate week 1. I was like, I don't think his play strength is good enough. He might get there. Like, his technique, his athleticism is NFL quality. But I did not like him as this week 1 answer at right tackle for them. he gets beat early in this game, and they say, all right, enough of that, and they go to the best swing tackle in the league, which might be a best case scenario for them for this year. Oh my God, another name gap here. Cal kid on the struggle bus here. What? Patrick McCarry. Yes. Anyway, they got issues on the right side of the line, and that was an issue coming into the year. So they're going to have to continue to work through that and figure that out. Maybe that's Ben Cleveland at right guard and McCarry at right tackle. Maybe that can settle things in there. Maybe it's picking someone up off the street. Tyree Phillips is out there, is familiar with this organization. Maybe a name to keep an eye on. But, yeah, Falele at right guard I don't think is long for the plans of this team. And then the other thing was the concerns of losing all these guys on the defensive staff. I think that shined through entirely. I don't think Orr had a great game plan here. And just the coaching overall with some of the miscommunications. They have the busted coverage on the Xavier Worthy touchdown. That stuff wasn't really happening last year. So they felt the loss of the defensive play callers. And Kyle Hamilton usage, that I don't like it. They played him at safety a lot more. He had just 14 snaps as a slot corner where he did most of his damage last year. He had some ugly plays coming downfield as a safety. That's just, I've always said, that's not his game. It's not that he's like truly horrible as a safety, but with the way people talk about him as one of the best safeties in the NFL, he's much more of just this nickel slot hybrid defender. And they just didn't really use him in that role. Zero pass rush snaps. I don't like that. I mean, Kyle Hamilton blitzing off the edge is a real problem for teams because he's got legitimate pass rush moves. His length, those and the instincts, the Spider-Man ability. If you're trying to run a bubble screen or like all these slants to like Rashee Rice and stuff, having Kyle Hamilton in that area in Mahomes' face can lead to deflections and sacks and forcing the guy to change throwing windows and all this stuff. Like I didn't like the usage of Hamilton. So some of the defensive coaching concerns I think showed up in this game. And I felt like the Ravens for the most part were who I thought they were, who we thought they were, if you were in line with my opinion, basically. And then for the Chiefs, I continue to have a hard time like knowing what to add on top of the Chiefs. They're the most well-covered team in the league that have been a very similar team for a long time. So I'm going to do my best as the year goes on, Chiefs fans, to find new things to talk about with you. I will say Mahomes breaking the Chiefs passing yardage record. It happened in the most Patrick Mahomes way ever, where he's rolling left, rolls back right, and then has just this stupid throw on the move, just exhibiting elite arm talent. A type of throw that we just see Mahomes make now, and we're like, oh yeah, that was normal. It's like, no, that is not normal. That would have been the best throw of 20 quarterbacks' career in the league right now. So like, very fitting way for him to break the Chiefs passing yardage record. Gotta love the way Rashee Rice looked out there. I was wondering, what we talked about in the deep dive is like, okay, are they going to put him outside more, kind of diversify his route tree a little bit, push the ball downfield for him a little more? Nope, they're not going to do that. They're going to lean fully into the Deebo Samuel version of Rashee Rice. And I got to say, man, it works. This dude is extremely explosive and powerful in a straight line. If all he's doing is running bubbles, slants, digs, drags, just like Deebo Samuel does for the Niners, honestly, man, that works just fine, especially when Xavier Worthy looks the part. It was a well-blocked reverse that is designed to tap into his speed, and it was a busted coverage touchdown. So people are going to, say he looked incredible, and I'd say he looked the part. I don't know that he necessarily did anything amazing in this game, but he does look the part and can only go up, right? Like, he's played his first game as a rookie, and then now you're putting Hollywood Brown in there. Like, you got Kelsey still looks good, Rashee Rice, that kind of short to intermediate annoyance, and then these guys over the top, Pacheco looking good in the run game. Like, this Chiefs offense is only just getting started here. So they checked a lot of boxes there. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I just got to shout out my guy, Leo Chanel, man. Another super impactful performance, getting 55% of the snaps here. 3 big run stops, 3 pressures as a rusher where they put him in as a blitzer. This dude's like genuinely one of the better defensive players. And he's in the perfect spot to succeed now, but I just feel like he's only going to keep stacking up what you can do with him. Is eventually going to be starting in the NFL, and is just this the way this dude hits and flies to the ball, and his play strength is different. I will continue to make the Demario Davis comp on him, and he was a big part of Derrick Henry not having such a big game, because the big reason Derrick Henry has had as much success, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for it, but this is a league where most of these linebackers are 230 pounds is like average. Leo Chanel is like 245, 250, and he can actually match the force of a Derrick Henry. So, got to shout out Leo Chanel. But the show goes on for both teams. And let's have this show go on to our next game, the Friday night game, Packers versus the Eagles in Brazil. And this is a game that I don't want to have too many major overreactions to, because it was just a weird game. The turf, guys slipping and falling all over the place. You've got a 10-hour flight. I know at least the Packers stayed in a hotel 2 hours from the stadium. The time zone is wacky. There's a lot of weirdness to this game that I think whatever the results were, I felt like it was going to be kind of an extension of the preseason, if you will, that just happened to count on the standings. And I will hold that opinion after the game, especially after seeing the turf. Like, guys were slipping and falling all over the place. It's like plays would happen, and you're like, I don't really know what to take about, think of that, because you don't expect that guy to just slip on his first step every play. So, just kind of a weird game, but it doesn't mean I don't have takeaways. I think it was still a statement win for the Eagles as much as it could be. Like, dude, this team is stacked. They fully have a case to say they have one of the best rosters in the league, especially given that Zach Bond, looks like one of the free agent steals of the offseason. And we talked about him in the Eagles deep dive, where I was like, well, when you saw him play linebacker for the Saints, it wasn't much, but he did look the part as a guy that came into the league as an edge rusher, has kind of learned this position from the ground up from some of the best linebacker coaches in the league in New Orleans, and the Eagles pick him up on the cheap, and they signed what looks like their version of Demario Davis here, who learned from Demario Davis, but someone with a pass rusher's background that flies around the field with crazy speed, but he's got zone feel. He had excellent coverage plays. Was just rock solid in run defense. He's got incredible play strength because he's played on the defensive line. He understands how to get his hands inside, throw a lineman aside. This dude absolutely looks the part of a stud 3-down linebacker. So that was their weakness for the Eagles. If this continues, where are the holes, right? They're going to get Devin White back, and if Devin White becomes your number 2 next to Zach Bond, who's doing all the actual hard stuff, and you can just blitz Devin White and use him for what he is, that's fine. The main problem with Devin White was he looked like he was going to be LB1, and that's not going to have to be the case. So everybody gets better in that linebacker room. I will say, why was everybody tagging me about Nakobe Dean having this great game? I certainly didn't see it. The PFF grade was in the 20s for him, I think. Had 4 tackles. I don't know why people were tagging me about Nakobe Dean. The best play he had was when Love slipped and threw it in the flat late, and Nakobe Dean should have had a pick 6, but he dropped it. So I don't know about that. I think Nakobe Dean takes a seat again when White comes back. But, yeah, they kind of had some answers at linebacker there. I thought the secondary looked good. I mean, the interception from Reed Blankenship, it was an aggressive decision from Jordan Love, but it was a great play from Blankenship. He read it out, came from the opposite side. Well, not the opposite side. He was in single high, but he started the reason Love threw that is because his first few steps were drifting to the other side, and he completely read Love's eyes, broke on it, and then undercut Luke Musgrave for a really hard interception. Like the burst, the instincts, the ball skills were all incredible on that play. And then, I thought Quinion Mitchell looked really good. It's a young secondary, trying to put things together here, but definitely looked the part to me on the back end. And then the offense, like this offensive line looks like it's going to be as good as ever. They got to clean up their snaps with Juergens. But yeah, Lane Johnson was just awesome going against Rashawn Gary. Like, you really didn't feel Gary much in this game. The rest of the O-line was awesome. And A.J. Brown back. I will reiterate, like, everybody harps on them for losing that game against the Bucs in the playoffs. They didn't have their best player. A.J. Brown wasn't there in that game. And that touchdown to start the second half was like, oh, yeah, A.J. Brown is one of the 3 or 4 best wide receivers in the NFL and is a complete game changer. So you've got him, Devonta Smith making plays, continuing to defy physics with his ability to bounce off tackles and play big despite being 175 pounds. And then, Saquon Barkley's on this team now. Like, looked unreal, absolutely unreal. Like, I really think he could lead the league in rushing. And then, Jalen Hurts, a game he wants back, I'm sure, but he's still settled in the second half. The game-winning drive was impressive. Good decisions, the running from him, the scrambles, put the game away when they needed him. In a game where he really made some uncharacteristic mistakes. I mean, Hurts, for the deficiencies I've said about him, especially as it relates to his arm talent and his pocket presence, one thing that hasn't been a big weakness for him over the years is crappy decision-making, where he's forcing really bad throws. And in this game, he was. So I think you can feel pretty good to say that those aren't going to continue and that this was a week 1 Brazil thing. But you can at least bring up, like, yeah, Hurts can't make those mistakes again and expect to win. He had 3 of the ugliest, I don't know exactly where to put it, but because Bo Nix's performance existed. But if let's remove Bo Nix from the equation, he probably had 3 of the 5 most ugly throws of the weekend. So you had the interception early in the game to Xavier McKinney, just throwing it late over the middle into double coverage. McKinney was just sitting on it. Just a horrible decision. It was 3rd and long, but they were backed up. That's not the situation in a tie game to have an arm punt, or they might have been down 3-0 at that point, but not the time for a, F it throw. So lucky that the defense held the Packers to a field goal after that. And then later in the game, he did have back-to-back throws that were like 2 of the worst plays of his career. He had, they ran that kind of like fake bubble screen, wheel route type of play where you're hoping the corner will either commit down or fall back. Well, Nixon, the slot corner, didn't. He kind of sat in the middle and was just waiting on Hurts to throw the underneath bubble, and he did, and Nixon broke on it, and Hurts got very lucky that was a dropped pick 6. And then on the next play, Jalen Hurts exhibits his brutal pocket presence, which is still an issue for Hurts and still something that is a drawback for him. But typically when he bails out of a clean pocket, he doesn't throw back across his body and get picked off, as he did on that interception from Jair Alexander. So you can point out the 3 mistakes, but I don't expect those to continue. So, yeah, the Eagles impressed me quite a lot. The last note I have on them is I just can't with Josh Sweat changing his number to 19. What was he, 90 before that? Like, why? Why would you change that? Or, 19 for an edge rusher? Gross. As for the Packers, a lot of mini takeaways from this game. I think Jordan Love looked the part of the franchise quarterback. He definitely he was loose with the football a couple times. He got lucky to not have an interception in this game. Or he did have one interception, but he could have had 3. And, the Jordan Love haters were very vocal about that. I think 2 of them were very aggressive decisions. That's a part of what makes Jordan Love great is he is a guy that's probably going to throw some picks because he loves these like leverage throws where he sees an angle, he's going to trust his receiver, feels like he's going to put the ball. It's very Dak Prescott-y in this very trait where he's like, I'm going to put it in a spot where I feel pretty damn good that at least the receiver is going to break up the pass. And he had these 2 plays. I think one was an out route, and it didn't get picked. The receiver and the corner kind of got their hands on it at the same time. It gets popped up in the air. Very easily could have landed in a DB's hand. It was a dangerous, dangerous pass. And then you have the one that was intercepted where he's trying to throw the kind of seam ball to Luke Musgrave. And you watch the play back and you're like, okay, yes, that was an interception on Jordan Love, a throw he would probably take back, but I can understand the process of it. Like we said, Reed Blankenship rotated to the other side of the field. It was cover 3, so he has a seam defender. I think it was Zach Bond running up the seam with your 6'6" seam stretching tight end. That's why they drafted him, was to win these balls against cover 3 up the seam. And, he's got maybe a half a step on Zach Bond. He's trying to kind of float in a leverage throw there. And honestly, where the linebacker was, the throw was fine. The problem was the play from Reed Blankenship breaking on it, and the throw was probably a little bit late, like a split second late. But it's probably not a throw you expect to get picked off. It did result in an interception. And you expect Luke Musgrave to get a little bit better body positioning on it. Again, it was a mistake from Jordan Love. I'm not trying to excuse the throwaway, but it wasn't one of these like egregious interceptions. Like you can at least see the thought process behind it. And then the one I will excuse away for him is the one that Nakobe Dean dropped. He slipped. Everyone was slipping all over the place. He slips on the play. He looks up. There's pressure in his face. And I can't entirely excuse it away. He needs to not just chuck it to his check down and assume it's there, chuck it down late, which is what he did. So I can't say I won't blame him for it, but I think it's a very learnable moment where it's like, all right, if you slip on the play and you stand up and there's a hand in your face, you still got to make sure the check down's open. And I also don't think Josh Jacobs was exactly where he was expecting him to be, but that was just a weird play that probably isn't going to happen again because of the slippage. Anyway, I've fully reached making excuses for Jordan Love territory, but what I'm trying to say is that I felt like his down-to-down process was pretty good. The command of the offense, the overall decision-making, made plenty of big throws in this game, and there were some sloppy plays that, if they continue, will lead to some inconsistency in his game. And he did have some inaccurate passes too, not to an egregious degree, but was it a dig route? He sailed over his head. How much is that the bad field? How much is that Jordan Love's accuracy issues? Again, I don't want to have massive takeaways from this weird week 1 game. Yet I just spent 10 minutes talking about it, but there you go. I don't think you guys are complaining. As for other takeaways, Jayden Reed looked different to me. I like Jayden Reed as a rookie. I was higher on him coming out, but he just looked different. He looked more explosive and the run after catch ability, the dynamism. Felt like he maybe ramped up what he's physically capable of this offseason, putting in a little bit of time in the gym, just the contact balance, just a more just strong, explosive version of Jayden Reed. And again, how much of that was the field, defenders slipping all over the place, we'll see. But if that's what they're getting from Jayden Reed, that's one of these weapons going from like really good player to dynamic difference maker. So that was exciting. And they're going to continue to lean into him without Jordan Love out there because he's kind of the easy button guy that they can get the ball in his hands. The offensive line played really good for the Packers. That's encouraging. Zach Tom continues to just ball the hell out, put those edge rushers in a box. On the flip side of positivity, you did have Dontavion Wicks had a horrible game, some really bad drops in this game. You don't want that version of him to keep up. He was obviously a big part of their run last year and someone they're counting on in many ways. I mean, they have other guys that can step up, but they're excited about him. And yeah, I mean, that was, I don't know if he had as many ugly drops in his entire rookie season as he did in that game against the Eagles. And then Romeo Doubs as well continues to have like the random poorly timed drop. He was wide open in the middle of the field and just goes right through his hands. That's been something that's kind of held him back because he's otherwise a pretty complete player. So you didn't love to see that. And then for the defense, I was actually very encouraged by the stuff they were doing with Jeff Hafley. I think Quay Walker had his best game as a Packer. It was really fun to see him actually running with defenders, up the seam, blitzing a little more, just playing upfield. Like, I don't want Quay Walker thinking too much. I want him just going, running, crashing. That's what they have him doing. And I think it was, not just him, but the signs were there that this is going to be a better defense. I think it's just A.J. Brown got them a few times. Jalen Hurts got them. Devonta Smith got them. Saquon Barkley got them. Like, these were elite playmakers that just made plays oftentimes at the catch point, at the tackle point that just the Packers didn't quite execute. But, we're going to learn a lot about the Packers defense over the next few weeks. It's going to be actually a very good opportunity for them with Jordan Love out to step up and have to be kind of the identity of this team for a little bit. And I think we are going to learn a lot about Hafley in this Packers defense. And the only other note here is that the kicker problem for the Packers is still an absolute meme. They've already cycled through 3 kickers, and none of them seem to be the answer. It's week 1, so don't love that. We'll see moving forward if the Packers can steal a game. That's kind of where I'm at with them. It's like, can they just be 1-3, get Jordan Love back, and then start their season kind of, behind the curve a little bit, but still very much in a position where they can get their season back. They entirely dodged a bullet. I know I certainly didn't get much sleep Friday night. If you can see bags under my eyes, it's because I still haven't caught up on sleep. That was the night I was banking on it. Didn't happen because I was, just trying to get anything about Jordan Love. I don't know why I thought that was going to happen when they were on the plane home from Brazil. But they did get very good news. It's going to be anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, it sounds like. I will say, I definitely wish they would have signed some form of a veteran, at least go pluck Tyler Huntley off of the Ravens practice squad. I just don't think Malik Willis is ready, man. He couldn't learn the offense in 2 years in Tennessee. You think he's going to learn this offense in 10 days? And we know Sean Clifford's not the answer. It's also frustrating that they gave up on Michael Pratt so quickly because he's on the Bucs practice squad. So, yeah, I'm definitely not encouraged by the quarterback situation, but we'll see how it goes. All right, our next game, Rams at the Lions. Super, super fun game that I think was ruined. Another great game, ruined by overtime rules. I've given this rant a million times. I don't really have time for it here today, but just know, those that have heard me rant about overtime in the past, my frustrations remain. It is ridiculous that Matthew Stafford doesn't get a chance to touch the ball, and all he can do is sit there, watch his gassed defense get marched down the field and the game's over. I would rather they just don't have overtime in regulation and then have they created the new rules for a reason, right? They want both teams to have an opportunity to touch the football. Either put those in the regular season or just don't have overtime. That's kind of where I'm at. But that's not to take away from the Lions' win. I think this was a great team win for them. The defense really stepped up. They ate on a Rams offensive line that just was, basically damn near XFL caliber by the time the game ended. They had so many guys getting out for injury. They already had their left tackle suspended. And The Lions defensive line played great. That was a big investment for them. Davenport looked awesome. Aiden Hutchinson had 11 pressures, a 96 PFF pass rush grade, which is going to be one of the best ones you see all year. Levi Awuzurike was a guy we're kind of keeping an eye out for. Is he going to be an impact for this team? A former second-round pick that's given them nothing. He had 5 pressures, but again, is that a level of competition thing? You give him credit for getting after it, but we're going to have to continue to monitor if that's going to keep up. Because they were really able to just rush with 4, dominate. Early in the game they were blitzing, but they reached a point where like, hey, we don't really have to do this, and they just started kicking ass with these guys up front. The main thing for the Lions for me was Jameson Williams. I think that's everybody's takeaway. Like, it's pretty obvious. Like, they've got all these pieces, but they don't really have that vertical threat. They were counting on him to be that dude, and he looks like he's taking a step, and that's just huge for this team. And, Goff didn't even have his best game, but his dynamism kind of overcompensated for that. So, just an impressive win for Detroit. I think the one thing that I didn't like from Detroit, and I'm not really worried about Goff's game. Like, if he keeps playing like that, I will be. But, he put the ball in harm's way, put them in danger of losing this game late. But he's been such a good decision maker for 25 games in a row that I'm willing to chalk this up to week 1 jitters. We'll see. But the one thing with Detroit that I didn't like really was how they used Brian Branch. And I say that because as a Packers fan, I love how they use Brian Branch. He had, what do I have here? 19 snaps from the slot cornerback position, where from week 12 on last year, that's all he played was slot corner. And he was the best slot corner in the NFL, wrecking games from that position. And they play him off. He's not able to make as consistent of an impact on the game. He had his, what would have been his worst graded game per PFF since, I think, like week 8 of last year when they were still playing him around with a little bit of safety stuff. I mean, seriously, Packers fan in me speaking, please just keep Brian Branch 10 yards away from the line of scrimmage like they were doing all game, and opposing teams will thank you for it. Like, I get that you have more corners now, but that doesn't mean you take a guy that's an elite slot corner and just ask him to do something else. He might be good at the other thing, but he's elite as a slot corner, and I don't get it. So we'll see if they keep that up. I did notice that Fetu Melifonwu didn't play. If he was out for an injury or couldn't make the trip to Brazil or something, that would explain it a little bit more, why they needed Branch as the full-time safety. It is, Lions fans will just have to let me know, because I'm not going to overreact to anything here in week 1. But it does make more sense if Melifonwu was out. So we'll continue to kind of follow up on that into the future. But as for the Rams, Matthew Stafford was incredible in this game. And, incredible in the sense, like, this wasn't the most perfect, amazing quarterback performance you'll ever see. He made mistakes. Like, you don't want the interception before half. He had some other moments under pressure where he put the ball in harm's way. There were some mistakes in there, but you expect mistakes when he's out there with, like I said, an XFL offensive line under constant pressure. He's making these throws with 2 defenders in his face. He can't even see where he's putting the ball, but he knows where he's putting the ball. Like, it was just a absolute put the team on my back, MVP type of night for Matthew Stafford. So for him to not be able to touch the ball at the end of this game was just a gut punch to NFL fans. So that was a bummer, but I've been talking up Stafford this offseason. I don't think enough people realize what he's capable of right now and the level of quarterback that he's bringing to the table for the Rams. And I think after Sunday night, more people do realize that. And then I do want to credit Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator for the Rams. I thought he really had this team prepared. They are and were outmatched against the Lions. And I think for the most part, obviously, once overtime hit and they were gassed, there's only so much you can do. But, for the most part, I thought they brought it up front. They slowed down the run better than I thought they would. I thought they would get ran all over. And, Jared Verse played great. These safeties had a really good game. Veteran safeties, Jordan Fuller and John Johnson. And, if this defense is just the 20th best unit in the league, I think that's an accomplishment because it's probably the worst roster in the league. So I want to give Shula some credit for a good start to his Rams career. Then we have the final primetime game, the Jets at the San Francisco 49ers. And I went in on this in the power rankings. But I really think both teams had a good night. I mean, the Niners obviously did. We'll talk about them. But I want to start with the Jets because the instant reaction from social media, ESPN, NFL Network, all these big accounts is, haha, Aaron Rodgers sucked. The Jets suck again. LOL, rip their season. It's like, okay, like I get I was high on the Jets coming in. I'm a Aaron Rodgers truther. I understand those things. But you see this like people always get mad at me for being like this Aaron Rodgers apologist, but I'm like, look, I'm just using my eyeballs. I'm just watching the game, and I see the way people are talking about it, and I see the amount of people that are talking about it, and I'm like, that's just not what happened. That's not what the film says. That's not how this game went and how we should be feeling about this team moving forward. I think the Jets are walking out of this performance extremely encouraged by how this season is going to go. And, you know, you see like the big one going around is like, oh my God, Zach Wilson's stat line was identical to Aaron Rodgers' stat line from this game against the Niners from week 1 last year. And I'm just like, all right, all film watching and just context is just out the window with this team at this point. So here's the deal. Yes, Aaron Rodgers' stat line was bad. The offensive output was bad. But my opinion is that the output, the results of the Jets' night did not equal the input and how well they actually played snap in, snap out. And people see, oh, he only had 171 yards. He threw 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That's a bad night. And they don't understand volume. They don't understand that the 49ers possessed the ball for 20 minutes. 20 minutes from the start of the second quarter until midway through the third quarter. They had the ball in the second quarter for 13 minutes and 40 seconds. They had the ball in the third quarter. They got the ball to start the game. The Niners did the double dip thing where they ran out the entire end of the second quarter and then got the ball again and then had a 7-minute, 18-second drive to start the third quarter. So you are taking almost half of the game statistically away from Aaron Rodgers, just from he gets to touch the football and have an opportunity. Like the problem in this game was the Jets defense. And we'll circle back to that. Okay, so Rodgers is not touching the ball. And then when they did have their possessions, you have the very first possession, Rodgers throws a perfect pass that is dropped by Allen Lazard. And if you want to have continued concerns about Allen Lazard, that's totally fair. You guys know I'm not the biggest Allen Lazard guy, but if we're trying to evaluate how Aaron Rodgers played, that's a perfect drop back from him. He moves the chains, gets the ball in a wide open receiver's hands on third down, and gets dropped. Okay, the next drive, Breece Hall runs to the left, and he fumbles it on the first play. So you have 2 more drives taken out of Rodgers' hands in a game where the time of possession was already damn near 3-1. And then the interception, which I'm not going to say it was a good play from Aaron Rodgers, but it was not a negative play, right? He is attempting a contested window throw to a wide receiver who had body position. Quarterbacks do this all the time. The ball is deflected, and it is deflected up in the air, unluckily, to a linebacker that turns around and gets an interception. And PFF deemed this not a turnover-worthy play. Again, it is not a positive play for Aaron Rodgers, but it is not a negative, bad process type of play. It is what you would objectively look at as a, unlucky play. So those are 3 drives are killed off of those 3 plays, the turnovers, and a drop on third down, which is a turnover, and then the run defense. So what else happened? They did have 2 3-and-outs in there, one of which was ruined by Nick Bosa, who had just an awesome bull rush on Tyron Smith. So that's a level of competition thing. It is what it is. The other 3-and-out was unsuccessful, but the other 2 drives basically that they had were long touchdown drives in which Aaron Rodgers showed great arm strength, great pocket presence, complete command of the offense. This idea that, Nathaniel Hackett can't get receivers open and he's the worst offensive play caller in the league, yet when Rodgers is in there, he is kind of the offensive mind. And my point on that going into the year wasn't, okay, it's going to be great, but it's going to be, maybe the 20th best run passing game in the league, basically with Aaron Rodgers calling all the shots. And that was visible. They got up to the line with like 25 seconds to go, and he's literally making all these checks, and it was working. The chemistry with Garrett Wilson was working. So Rodgers had a very efficient night when he got to touch the ball against the Niners defense, which is awesome. Absolutely awesome. So I think the Jets will watch this game offensively and feel very encouraged about the overall play of the offensive line, how Aaron looked, the fact that Aaron got through the game perfectly fine. His arm looks great. And say, all right, well, if Breece Hall doesn't fumble, the Lazard third down drop very well might happen again. But that's not something you hold against Aaron Rodgers in terms of how well did he play. And then, we don't have a contested pass result in an interception, and play a little bit of defense. Like, they probably feel very encouraged that they're going to turn this thing around. Great teams have had much worse starts in week 1 than what happened with the Jets. Against the Niners team, by the way, that was absolutely cooking. And, of course, you might be saying, well, aren't you worried about the defense then, if they were the problem? And that's the thing, is like, we know that in the NFL, even the best defenses run into buzzsaws and have bad nights. To me, this was more about the Niners just coming out, kicking ass, taking names. The Jets have had a great defense for 2 years. Even the people that said I was too high on the Jets coming in didn't have really any questions about the fact that the Jets defense is really freaking good. And Saleh is a great defensive coach. And there's plenty of reason to believe, there's more than plenty of reason to believe that this is probably going to be one of the worst nights, if not the worst night of the year for this Jets defense. I don't want to just dismiss it entirely. I think the play of the defensive line specifically is discouraging. They gave up 3 pieces, right? Bryce Huff, John Franklin Myers, and Quentin Jefferson, all gone. Were good players for them last year. And, they were missing the run defense aspect, I think, from John Franklin Myers. Clemens, who's more of an edge-turned-hybrid player, as opposed to Franklin Myers, who's more of an interior player-turned-hybrid player. I think they felt the difference there. And I think they really seem to be whiffing on this Will McDonald pick. I think they felt like that was kind of in their back pocket in terms of negotiations with Hassan Reddick. Like, hey, we don't really need you. We have our first-round pick last year that can do what you do. He can't do that. He couldn't beat Colton McKivitz as a pass rusher. So they've got to get Hassan Reddick back out there. And that might happen by the time this podcast comes out. But, okay, so the defensive line might take a step back, and they're not quite as good defensively as they are last year. But I think you're very encouraged by what happened offensively. So you've heard it all from me at this point, but I will at least defend the Jets heading into next week. If they don't show up and smash the Titans, we'll revisit this next week, because they should. In my opinion, based on where I'm at with them, I'm expecting them to decimate the Titans, and these excuses are not going to continue. Because as we transition to the Niners looked insane. Absolutely insane on both sides of the ball. Everything was clicking on Monday night. Brock Purdy, especially. I feel like the Jets were just waiting on Purdy to make a mistake. It didn't happen. He's climbing the ranks, man. He really is. He's so good when he's given the structure. The pass protection was really good, and he was so consistently finding the right guy. But his ability in improvisational situations is legitimately special. The Joe Burrow to him, the Joe Burrow of him, continues to shine for me. So I just am so impressed by Brock Purdy. Obviously, Jordan Mason, the offensive line. I mean, the fact that you have Dominique Pooney played incredible. Looks like I'm going to be very wrong about not liking Dominique Pooney in the draft. Colton McKivitz played great. Like, those are supposed to be the weakest parts of this team, and they had some of the best nights on the team. So they were awesome. Debo, Kittle, Ayuk didn't even have his best game, but everything else was clicking. Shanahan is a play caller, Juszczyk making plays, like everything was working. Defensively, I do think the pass rush was winning with 4. They blitzed 2 times in the game, and the pass rush was winning. The guys in the secondary played great. Fred Warner is just a unique problem. So this to me was a statement game from the Niners. Like, hey, we recognize the urgency to get this thing done this year, and we're going to do it. And if they play like this every single week, they will go undefeated and win the Super Bowl. But like we said when we were making excuses for the Jets, teams don't play like this every single week. This was one of those nights where they were just on and focused and ready to go. So big night for the Niners. Expectations are as high as ever in San Francisco. All right, I'm going to take a quick break, and then we will keep this thing rolling. All right, for our next game, we're going to talk about the battle for the peninsula in Florida, the Dolphins hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jags fans, I really do feel bad for you. I mean, last year, the season was an epic collapse, and then they start this year with what very well might be what ends up being the biggest collapse inside an individual game. Now, it's just week 1. They're praying that they can turn this thing around. But my Lord, this was devastating for the Jags. I mean, everything looked so good to start. I even tweeted out, I was like, the biggest winner of the first half so far is the Jags. And I do apologize. I think I may have Twitter cursed you, Jacksonville. But good God, this thing was like, up here, like that win probability chart, it was like up here, and then snap of a finger, it was gone. It just, an inexplicable turn of events. You go, Travis Etienne is falling into the end zone to go up 24-7 with 2 minutes left in the third quarter. There's 17 minutes left in this game. He was falling into the end zone. Javon Holland pops the ball out. So the ball rolls out the back of the end zone. On the next play, Tyreek Hill, 80-yard touchdown, catches a dig, outruns the defense. Boom. That's a 14-point swing at the snap of a finger. The Jags actually fumbled the ensuing kick return. They get it back. It looked like they were going to lose it, and having Kevin Harlan on the call for this game was fantastic because he's just silent for a second, doesn't know what to say, and in his Kevin Harlan voice, which is impossible to replicate, just goes, "Calamity." It was a great call. I know I didn't do it justice just now, but just wild. And then they proceed to just have no physical or mental toughness to finish this game off. So they go, come out after all this happens, and they go first down run, second down screen, third down run, stuffed, and then on their own 30-yard line, they go for it, and they don't get it. They run a wide sweep to Travis Etienne. They have a blocking miscommunication. Those that watch the Jags deep dive know how absolutely fucking frustrating their run schemes are and how many mishaps they have in the run game. And for it to be on your own 30-yard line on 4th and 1, you're trying to put this game away. It's not blocked up. ETN reverses field, runs about 60 yards to get 0 on the play. So turnover on downs. The defense actually gets another stop, but then luckily Miami misses the field goal, so it doesn't bite them in the ass. They still have a 17-14 lead at this point, trying to eat up some clock, put some more points on the board. Run, no first down. They get blitzed on like 3rd and 5, and Trevor, in the face of pressure, kind of off his back foot, leaves it out there. I can't remember if it was Christian Kirk or who it was, but another one of these Jaguars-style near completions, right? That was one of the themes from last year. Just out of the reach, hits the fingertips of the wide receiver, and they punt. The Dolphins then tie it up on a field goal on the next drive, and then the Jags get the ball back again. And in that situation, I actually don't think Trevor was very good. Not that he was truly horrible, but he didn't get the job done in that final situation. For anybody that says momentum is not real, watch this game, because it was a complete force of momentum working against the Jags, but their inability to respond and their lack of physical and mental toughness has been a theme on this Jags team that it seems is only going to continue to hurt them, at least to start the year here with Doug Peterson's Jags. So just a very frustrating outing with so much more of the same, right? And it's not just the mental and physical toughness. We already talked about one of these plays where it was a near completion from the quarterback to the wide receiver. There was a play earlier in this game. Trevor throws a beautiful ball on 3rd and 12, just right through the hands of Christian Kirk. Just continuing to get bad wide receiver play in high leverage moments, working against Trevor Lawrence. So Jags fans, a true gut punch. There's some positive takeaways. You know, Trevor did play great in this game. I think I didn't expect Brian Thomas to be this big of a part of the offense so early. I thought Gabe Davis played well with Trevor. Some of those, sideline chemistry balls. So they can get this thing going again, but the lack of a run game is eye-opening for this team. It was last year and is yet again an issue that I just don't know if they're going to be able to overcome that this year. I think it's just something that's broken with the Doug Peterson regime here. So tough. But as for and by the way, another saving grace before we talk about the Dolphins is Trayvon Walker had maybe the most impressive sack of his career. Now, it was his only registered pressure of the day, but he just completely steamrolled Austin Jackson for a bull rush sack. And then he's kind of like, getting towards Tua. Tua tries to roll out and coming out of the bull rush, he's kind of stumbling a little bit, as you tend to happen when you just detonated a 300-pound person. You're not always going to come out of that with perfect balance. But he still had great contact balance and the length, just the traits on that play. It was like, it is in there for Trayvon Walker. It hasn't all come together yet, but it is good to know that it's in there and it's not a phony, right? It's not just this, underwear Olympics thing. Like, when it does come together for him, it's like, Jesus Christ, like, Myles Garrett is in there somewhere. It's just a Jekyll and Hyde situation, whereas Myles Garrett is just Myles Garrett. So I did want to shout that play out because it was very impressive, and I'm hard on Trayvon Walker, but I acknowledge the dominance of that one play. And I thought he was more present as a run defender than he had been really throughout last year, too, in this new system. So Trayvon Walker's on watch. I thought he had a good game. As for the Dolphins, I think you'll take this one if you're a Dolphins fan because, number one, it was just a tough win. They just kind of scratched this one out, honestly. They played defense. They brought it physically. Their game plan, it was almost too on the nose for the take that I had on this team, and maybe this is confirmation bias, but the main thing I said about the Dolphins was like, if you're Mike McDaniel and every year you've come into the season with this like genius innovation to the offense that nobody can stop. But by week 12, the league has shared all their film and has figured out how to stop that new wrinkle. My thinking on this was like, break that thing out in week 14. You still have time to make sure it works and trial it, but don't give the league time to get the film on how to stop the thing that you want to bring to the table this year. Now, maybe McDaniel didn't have the new thing, but their game plan was almost so on the nose to tell you that they've got something in their back pocket and they're just going to hold on to it a little bit longer this year, because they really didn't try much offensively. This was a very conservative, basic Mike McDaniel week. The pre-snap motion, I didn't feel like it went too crazy. Maybe I'm just so used to pre-snap motion that I don't even notice it anymore, but it definitely didn't feel like they were doing crazy stuff before the snap. It was a lot of bubble screens, RPOs, kind of just hitting the vanilla stuff. I mean, Achane had to have 6 bubble screen receptions in this game, and it was working for the most part. Like they were getting the run after the catch. They ran the ball a lot. And then they dialed up some very simple shot plays one to Jalen Waddle, one to Tyreek Hill. They needed those. But it's interesting. I'm very curious to see where this goes, because that was a take coming in. And if that's how this plays out, where we get to week 12, week 13, and this offense starts doing something that they, haven't been doing all year, and they're able to beat, because the Dolphins have been a first half, second half team for 2 years now. If they're able to flip that, and maybe they're just more like, hey, let's keep things vanilla, play good defense, win these close games, and then get, a little wild in the second half of the year, could be something to keep an eye out for. So, an observation to say the least. Achane's awesome. He's very strong. He has legitimate contact balance, great vision in space. They definitely want to feature him. They're going to use him and Mostert together, but it's not going to be like, he's not a backup. I'll say that. It is very much, he is a starting feature of this offense. That's really all I have to say on the Dolphins. It was good to see them have a mentally tough win. Jalen Phillips had a big sack to end this game. Great to see him back. I was really worried when he tore his Achilles, but looks like some version of himself is back. That'd be big for this team. And Javon Holland was fantastic as well. He was game changing in this play. He had the punch the ball out on Travis Etienne. They don't win this game without that play, but he also had a huge third down stop covering Evan Ingram. Had a really scrappy pass breakup too. Javon Holland is very underrated. Had a huge game here. Okay, let's go forward to the Arizona Buffalo Bills game. Another just really fun game. The thing is, I don't have that much to say about this game because it's so in line with my preseason analysis of these two teams, where for the Cardinals, Kyler Murray kind of putting the team on his back with a really bad defense, and kind of similar for Josh Allen. The results of this game were definitely in line with what I expected. I had this as a over pick for my Patreon picks. I did pick the Cardinals to win in like a huge upset, but I was like, the Bills will probably win, but I'm going to have some fun and pick the Cardinals. And it was close. 34-28, back and forth game, really. But man, the Cardinals came out and just, the Cardinals are like the football hipsters team this year, because I think the people that watch Kyler Murray play football realize he's a pretty damn good quarterback. He gets way too much hate. And when you watch them last year, you're like, man, their offense makes a ton of sense. All these pieces work well together. Drew Petzing is looking really good as a play caller, and everything is really coming together here offensively for this team. And out the gate, that absolutely happened. I mean, this is a really fun run game with Kyler and James Conner, who continues to also be super underrated. No one loves James Conner because he isn't fast, but he's as good at breaking tackles. He's got as good a vision, power as most backs in the league. He is awesome. And, he had one good run in this game, was slowed down otherwise, but he did have some really good games through the good plays through the air as well. So he's a weapon. But I just want to circle back to the play calling. Like, everything just kind of makes sense when you watch this team play. And it was very, an interesting parallel, because as we'll talk with the Bills, it doesn't necessarily always make sense. But with the Cardinals, it's like there's a plan, everything's set up. It's very Shanahan-y, where it's like, all right, we used the read option to set up the boot, to set up the inside handoff, to set up the play action screen. Like, it all flows together. Every piece on this team makes sense. And the last thing that they're going to have to figure out is how to get someone named Marvin Harrison Jr. the football. I think if they've been able to figure the rest of this out, I think they can figure that out. And Kyler is just the perfect conductor for this system, because they know how to lean into him, lean into his athleticism. They get him on the move, get him these throws outside the pocket that didn't really happen with Cliff Kingsbury. If you have a 5'9" quarterback, getting him to throw on the move on these play action boots is generally a pretty good idea. But they don't overdo it either. They do have him throw from the pocket where he looks in complete command of the offense. Really, really good, like on time, good reads, all that stuff. He had one bad play, Kyler, where he takes a sack, fumble. Got to take better care of the football there, but really a nice day for Kyler Murray and the Kyler Murray agenda overall. And the Cardinals defense was as bad as you could have possibly imagined. I mean, it is just, it's a dagger to the heart that their two young defensive linemen aren't there for them. Darius Robinson, their first round pick, is currently hurt, and BJ Ojulari done for the year. Without those guys, it's like, what? They're just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. They have no pass rush. They have this motley crew of defenders. And in the case of the Cardinals, it's like, it's fun. Some of these blitzes work, kind of. But even when they don't work, they're not always finishing. And Josh Allen's breaking all these sacks. And the Cardinals, it's like a case of you can throw shit at the wall to see what sticks, but it's still shit. Like, they did this last year. They had some fun. They got weird, but they were still the worst defense in the league. Exactly the same in this Bills game. And I just don't know. I just don't see the roster talent on that side of the ball there. So this is going to be their game script all year long, but it sure is better to have this and have a really fun year and get some good draft capital and, look at it next year and say, like, man, if we could just get this defense to average with a coach that I think is doing everything he can, Jonathan Gannon, and then hopefully you don't lose Drew Petzing before all this happens, because they might with the way he's calling plays. And then you look at next year, it's like, all right, we won 7 games last year. Kyler was awesome. Like that's just kind of what they're building towards. It's going to be a fun year, I think, for the Cardinals, as long as your expectations are in the right ballpark. And then for the Bills, this was just rinse, repeat, pick up where they left off. Josh Allen ball. Like, I said it coming into the year, like, if this team makes the playoffs and this is the type of games that they're playing in, Josh Allen should win the MVP. And I think that started here right now. Like, if I had to pick the MVP after week 1, I think I would vote Josh Allen. A long season ahead of us, but there's just, even Lamar Jackson, I don't think there's a quarterback that, well, here's what I'll say. I would say both Allen and Lamar are very similar, in my opinion, in the sense of, like, they are their offense. They are the entirety of the passing game. They put a lot on their plate to make the right reads, avoid mistakes, create plays from the pocket on third down, but also their offense in the sense of their run game runs through them. And very similar in that regard. I would just say Josh Allen does what Lamar does even more consistently. He doesn't have the accuracy issues that Lamar has, right? So that's the main difference, is Josh Allen's just better than Lamar, and I don't think that's controversial to say that. But anyway, watching this game, I'm like, yeah, that's what an MVP performance looks like. They're asking a lot of him. Like I mentioned with the Cardinals, like, everything on the Cardinals offense seems very structured and lined up and makes sense. The Bills, it still just kind of feels random, but it's like maybe structured randomness, maybe. Like, they kind of have a good feel for this now. I know it's a hard offense to kind of analyze, but they spread the ball out. It's a lot of short passes, actually. That's kind of how they've built this, is they've got a lot of different outlets for Allen, make the right reads, stay ahead of the chains, use the threat of his legs in the run game, in the red zone. I mean, he had the touchdown where he goes over Budda Baker. It's like signature play. And then just enough deep shots. They probably could take more. They had one unsuccessful one to MVS, and then they had another one to Keon Coleman later in this game on a big-time back shoulder. Love to see that. Coleman's going to get slowly integrated here, but if they can start to mix those deep shots into Keon Coleman in there, it's going to get really exciting here. But they had 2 passes that went over 20 yards. So it was just like, hey, Allen, I think the metaphor I was thinking of, I'm workshopping this a little bit, but it's like a nickel and dime offense where it's like the death by 1,000 paper cuts type of deal, except for instead of a sword, you're using a warhammer, which is Josh Allen. Like Josh Allen, he's beating you in this, like the results of a Tom Brady offense where it's 6 yards here, 5 yards here, 7 yards here, but he's just so much more blunt than a finely slicing nickel and diming quarterback. That's just kind of how I think about the offense, and it's hard to put that into words, but we're trying. We're working on it. It's a unique, very unique style offense. I am worried about the Bills' defense. I was heading into the year, continue to be worried about the Bills' defense. I just don't think they have the players, man. Teron Johnson gets hurt in this game. He might go to the short-term IR. Like, who are the Bills' 3 best players on defense? Okay, Ed Oliver, that's a clear answer. But in this game, Ed Oliver got blanked. He was a complete nothing burger in this game. That's what that happens with Ed Oliver because he's a unique matchup dependent defensive tackle. He'll have his big games and then he'll have his games where he disappears, and that's your best player. Okay, Greg Rousseau had a very good game. I'll give him that. But he's inconsistent. He's a blunt, power rushing only player. Okay, then it's Teron Johnson, who's hurt currently. Matt Milano's done for the year. Who's next? Rasul Douglas, nice player, ball hawking corner, but he gets beat. He's not a shutdown corner. He's a playmaking corner. I mean, and then you're getting into Christian Benford territory, like nice number 2 corner. Daquan Jones, a good aging defensive tackle. Like, I think McDermott's a very good, maybe not great defensive coach, and he's working with what has turned into, unfortunately, like a bottom 10 roster on that side of the ball. So I just don't know that this is going to be a great defense this year, and they're going to put a lot on Josh Allen's plate this year, which is all leads to that MVP narrative. But I am worried that it's why I just don't really see the Bills as like a Super Bowl team this year. If they had some great defense and this was their like that then they'd be the Ravens, right? But that's not really where I'm at with them. All right, the Titans at the Bears. Caleb Williams' debut. Caleb got a lot of hate for this game too. I'm gonna, here's the biased Packers fan, Aaron Rodgers fan here. I'm going to give the same defense of Caleb Williams that I did on Aaron Rodgers. His stat line was not very good. I don't even know what it was. We have like 150 passing yards or something. But people were slamming Caleb Williams like he, flopped in his rookie debut. And I don't think he played as well as Aaron Rodgers did in the snaps that he did have. But similar thinking where you've got to look at A, what they were asking Caleb Williams to do, and B, the lack of opportunities to touch the football for different reasons for the Bears. They use the argument against Caleb Williams is, well, he was carried by a defensive touchdown and a special teams touchdown. The team carried Caleb Williams to this win. And while that applies, you also have to understand that means he didn't get those drives to do that himself, which I think he may have been capable of in this game. Now, you can't give him credit for having done that because he didn't, but it hurt his stat line, right? Those are drives that are taken out of Caleb Williams' hands, points that are put on the board, and then they take the field in the fourth quarter with the lead. Of course, they're going to shelter up, enter chew clock mode. It's almost another drive that as long as they were able to run the ball and move the ball with a DJ Moore jet sweep and a, DeAndre Swift good run, they weren't going to put the ball in the hands of Caleb. So he just didn't have a ton of dropbacks and opportunities to prove it. And then the other thing is the Bears clearly went into this game saying, all right, it is the Titans, week 1. We've been through this a million times. Let's not overload our rookie quarterback in week 1. And their game plan was extremely conservative. Bubble screens, running the ball, get the ball out. It was very similar, ironically, to what the Steelers did with Justin Fields, where it's like, just don't make mistakes. We're going to hold your hand through this one. We're going to support you. We just have to win this game. And we don't want ugliness. And I don't think they did that because they don't trust Caleb Williams. I think they did it because they're trying to be very smart about this and build this thing up. And it ultimately worked. The special teams, the defense made enough plays. But I didn't watch that game like, oh my God, Caleb looked really bad. There just wasn't a lot of opportunities. He did have 2 bad plays. He overthrew Keenan Allen on a double move. You ding him for it, right? You don't panic. Like Caleb Williams, the last thing I'm going to worry about with him is accuracy. He's a very accurate thrower. I think he just, first game of his career, he missed a throw. We're not going to panic there. And then he took a really bad sack where he's going to have to learn what he can and can't get away with in these scramble drill hero ball situations. He lost like 20 yards trying to do the, Mahomes thing. Like, yeah, you're going to have to learn what you can and can't get away with. I'm not worried about that either. So, again, I'm going to sit here and make excuses for Caleb Williams because there wasn't really, sure, there wasn't the great that you might have been hoping to see, but I don't think it was a bad outing. He did what they asked him to do. He threw a bunch of bubble screens, handed the ball off, made a few plays with his feet to keep drives alive. It's not like there was no good in there. He made some throws. So, yeah, I don't really have any takes, really, from Caleb Williams, other than the need to defend the people going at him. Now, for the Bears, thank God for Will Levis, really, because if they did lose this game and they did have to ask Caleb to do a bunch of things and maybe he didn't step up in those situations, this would be a lot more panic. With all the hype heading into the year, if they lose the home opener to the Titans, that would have been very bad. So for me, it's like you checked some boxes. The defense played well. I don't think they certainly didn't shatter any expectations, but they scrapped out a win. They showed some team toughness. And all right, let's head to week 2 and see what that's going to look like. And are they going to open the offense up for Caleb Williams a little bit more? I would like to see them do that. They obviously they can't have this game plan every single week. They don't get to play the Titans every single week. The last play I will shout out before we go to the Titans is Javon Dexter did pass the week 1 test. It was against the Titans offensive line that might be the worst in the league this year, but he did pass the test. He had 3 really nice pass rush wins. They were impactful, pressuring Will Levis, and that's a huge thing for this team. They did get some success from Darrell Taylor as well. That was a little more matchup-y to me. He was going against J.C. Latham, which if I were to draw a matchup up for Darrell Taylor, who's all speed and bend, it would be against J.C. Latham, who I think needs to play guard and can't get that, can't handle that quickness. So it was a very good matchup. And Will Levis, who just doesn't have good pocket presence. We'll see. I'm not expecting Darrell Taylor to continue to have good games, but he did step up in this one. But mostly to see Javon Dexter winning with some pass rush moves and being an impact is something we talked about in the Bears deep dive. Like that is maybe the biggest X factor for this defense and maybe this team outside of Caleb Williams. So it was good to see him pass the week 1 test. I'll give him credit for that. As for the Titans, honestly, this was exactly what I feared when I ranked the Titans 28. They have individual pockets of talent, right? But does it all make sense together? Does it work? And does the O-line specifically kind of shatter any hopes of offensive success? And can Will Levis stop being Jameis Winston? No, not in week 1 against the Bears. I mean, the offensive line was a disaster. J.C. Latham, all of my issues on him showed up week 1. The foot speed, getting beat on inside moves, getting beat around the corner as well, which he wasn't even doing that at Alabama, but he was getting beat around the corner to Darrell Taylor. He looked good as a run blocker, but I just don't think he has the movement skills that Callahan can develop. We'll see where that goes, but the early returns on me hating that pick for the Titans, thinking there were about 5 other tackles that would have been a better pick for them to be a left tackle for them, the week 1 returns have been a W. Now, we'll see where it goes there. But even like Peter Skoronski struggled at left guard. The concerns about the right guard and right tackle absolutely showed up. So Callahan's got a lot of work to do there. It's not like it's going to be he steps in and overnight, they're just good now. They still have to develop the players that they have, and that's what he's there to do. But they have to get that done. And then for Will Levis, it was such a Will Levis game for anybody that's watched him play, man. He's a reckless quarterback. Maybe even more reckless than he was at Kentucky. But he has no pocket presence, so he never has any idea where the rush is coming from, when he's about to get hit. That's a big problem. You saw a strip sack fumble in this game. And I think that leads to some of these questionable throws, too, where he's realizing last second that he's about to get hit, or in the case of the pick 6, he drifts into pressure. He has a clean pocket, drifts out of it, and then gets hit and flips the ball up into the flat, and it gets pick 6. I don't know that gets fixed. He's also reckless in the sense of, like, he doesn't slide. He's already wearing a back brace, like, a heating pad in the middle of this game because he took a huge hit to his back. You worry about that. I like Will Levis. I really do. But I don't see the growth and the development that I needed to see when I liked Will Levis initially. So it's going to have to start with the pass protection. And if you can buy him time, get him to trust the pocket, there is stuff to like. Like he can read a defense. He throws a beautiful ball. He's got an amazing arm. He had his moments in this game. He really did. But the negatives on the second half lost the game for his team. And I don't know how you can have any other reaction where you're like, shit, this is Jameis Winston. He's fun. You're going to win some games. You're going to get some good outings from him. But this is not a guy that you can have unless he develops. This is not a franchise option for them. So they got to show some growth. See, any other notes on the Titans? I didn't have too much to say about the Titans defense. The D-line played well. Give them that. Unfortunately, nothing really stood out to me about the Titans defense quite yet. We'll keep an eye on that moving forward. But Tony Pollard in the run game did look really good. At least the offensive line from a run blocking perspective did well. And Pollard looked as good as he ever has. He really impressed me. So might be more of a work share for Pollard. I kind of projected a 50-50 split there. But if Pollard looks that good, they're going to lean into him even more than Tyjae Spears. So worth noting that there. All right, next up we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Atlanta Falcons. This was the most Pittsburgh Steelers football game of all time. We have watched this game for the Pittsburgh Steelers 10 times a year for the last 10 years, or at least the last 5. And it was, they came out with this game plan of, we're a boxer. It's going to be a bunch of jabs, 4-yard run here, play action boot, 3-yard dump down there, Justin Fields read option for 5 yards here, run up the middle 6 yards here, just pop, 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 pop. And then Arthur Smith, at the right moments, being that smart boxing play caller that he is, has a couple of deep shots in his bag. Play action deep shots. They get, three deep looks to George Pickens in this game. All 3 of them are really nice. One of them got called off for a offensive pass interference that was bullshit. Should have been a completion. But they've got this game plan, right? They like their run game. Justin Fields fits it well. They have George Pickens as their deep shot, who's as good at, he's good at separating. He's a pretty good deep route runner, but even if he doesn't separate, throw it anyway. Like, a 50-50 ball for George Pickens might be the best. Like, he really might be the best jump ball receiver in the league. He might. That's with all due respect to Mike Evans, DK Metcalf. I think Pickens might be it. His body control, like, if you're a little off too, like, he'll make you look right. He's so good at protecting the balls. He's going to the ground. Just really amazing ability to come down with these balls. So it works. They suck the defense in and then hit you with these deep shots and then play defense. Kind of what we expected them to do. We just didn't necessarily. The main thing is Justin Fields didn't turn the ball over. As long as Fields is not turning the ball over, they will keep playing him. I do believe that. And my analysis for this in the power rankings was, everyone wants my Justin Fields reaction. Well, I don't really have one. They put him on the bunny slope, held his hand all the way down. He made it down without falling. Okay. In the past, Fields has been the guy that loses a fumble in the fourth quarter, has a bad read, overthrows a pass that gets picked. He has been a guy that traditionally loses the game for his team, and he didn't do that. I think you're afraid that might happen in the future, but they're rolling with him in week 2. I expect the game plan to be exactly the same, and maybe as the year goes on, brick by brick, they put a little bit more on his plate and you start to see some development there. That's where I'm at with Fields. I wasn't overwhelmed by Fields. I wasn't underwhelmed by Fields. He was fine. He did exactly what they asked him to do. It wasn't much. It was a lot of rolling out and just, they had to have just drilled it into him. Like, if there is even a hint of doubt, other than the design deep shots, which are a systematic thing where, like, we're blocking with 8 dudes. You are going to have a clean platform to throw this from. Put the best ball on George Pickens that you can, and we know Fields throws a good deep ball. Other than that, it's like, if there is a hint of doubt that the wide receiver is covered, run. Please, that's all we want. And don't fumble. So he executed that. And when you have TJ Watt having a defensive player of the year type of performance, as he did, absolute game-wrecking day from him, and the defense is playing well, they're going to be able to win 9 games with this format, right? Very unsurprising day for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I do think as long as Fields is taking care of the football, it will be him over Russell Wilson. And the second he goes back to fumbling balls, making mistakes, it will be Russ. And it'll be the same game plan. Good first win for the Steelers. It was not an easy game. They were the classic Steelers where they didn't score a touchdown. They made 6 field goals. They capitalized on a lot of Falcons' mistakes. TJ Watt was an absolute monster, and it was enough. Let's talk Falcons. Really sloppy outing. Really sloppy. A lot of penalties. Kirk Cousins did not look comfortable within this offense. The timing of it all was just a little off. Like, making throws that he hadn't been making in Minnesota, or at least maybe he was making throws that he made in Minnesota, but they weren't the right throws. Like, he was anticipating that backside dig would be there, or that Justin Jefferson was going to be there to win the corner out, like whatever it might be. It's going to be different here. It's a different offense. They have playmakers, but it's going to be different. And one thing that's very clear is the pass protection is going to be different. That's where I'm really worried about with the Falcons. This was a very different offense last year with Ritter. The offensive line played well, but it was in a almost exclusive play action, read option, gimmick offense. And this is a good run blocking offensive line. They really are. But when you are asking Caleb McGarry to drop in a, traditional drop back, or their 290-pound center, or, year 2, Matthew Bergeron, who has struggled one-on-one. These 3 guys, they're good run blockers. They're great run blockers. But that is a worry. If you're going to be more of a traditional drop-back passing game and try to do the Matthew Stafford stuff within this Zach Robinson offense, are you giving Kirk Cousins the time to throw, and are you getting him hit, which is going to lead to a lot of what we saw, which is he's trying to play on time, but he's just getting hit a little faster here, and he's having to step up into these throws, and he's having to make these throws while getting hit, and it led to some interceptable passes, some interceptions. The one to Adoree Jackson late in the game. And that's the worry here. And I'm not necessarily worried that they won't be able to get Drake London the ball. They did get Kyle Pitts the ball. That's not so much my worry. It's just the pass protection, and is Kirk can he get back to the processing level that he had in Minnesota or something close to it quickly? And to this point, it certainly hasn't been seamless. Now, it wasn't all bad. I do think Kirk made some throws, and I also think the way that they are leaning into Bijan Robinson was effective for them in this game, but it's going to lead to some really good games offensively, because the Pittsburgh Steelers are, they're that team that, like, they're not going to let you gash them on the ground. They might have their games where they're giving up 6 or 7 yards a pop, but their pursuit, their effort, and tackling consistency on the back end, they're not the team that's going to let Bijan get into the second level, make the safety miss, and then he's off to the races. But he was close. He was close a lot, and they really leaned into him in a way that Arthur Smith never did. I think he out-touched the ball like 9-1 to Tyler Algier. Like, Algier entered a true relief pitcher backup role. And Bijan was getting these 6-7 yard runs. He was awesome on checkdowns. He touched the ball a lot. And there's going to be a lot of defenses that aren't tackling as good as the Steelers are. And these 7-yard runs are going to turn into 15-yard runs. These 4-yard checkdowns are going to turn into 15-yard checkdowns. And that's going to be a big difference. So the opponent mattered there. And the checkdown thing is real. I don't mean that as a slight to this offense. There's a world where the Bijan Robinson checkdown is the most dangerous part of this Falcons offense, because, quarterbacks get a lot of shit for being checkdown artists, but not a lot of quarterbacks utilize their checkdown on time consistently. Kirk will. If you want to play quarters and you want to protect against all these receivers and play bend don't break defense, he will every time find that checkdown outlet to Bijan Robinson. And I think Bijan is the best checkdown receiver in the league because he's got a very good feel for it. He has great hands. He can catch these balls with one hand without changing or losing momentum. And he is as shifty after the catch as anybody in the league. So the Steelers could handle it. But once they get into division play, can the Bucs handle it? Can the Panthers handle it? Like, there's going to be some really big Bijan weeks coming. I really do think so. So it's not all bad. I thought the defense played really hard. Not that they had any crazy standout performances, but I do think the Raheem Morris factor was felt. That things were cohesive and they played hard. The run defense was still very good, and they definitely put themselves in a position to win this game. So I think you do feel good that the defensive coaching is playing its hand here. And Grady Jarrett looks pretty healthy too, so that's good. So I'm not panicking about the Falcons, but they do have some things to clean up, as we described, and I think the Steelers found their formula here. Okay, Bengals at Patriots. The Week 1 Bengals strike again. It's very frustrating. Another situation where I'm not panicking. This is not a Week 1 overreaction from me. I really think next year the Bengals need to play in the preseason, because this is not the first time this has happened. They just were so clearly unprepared. They had no game plan. They had no semblance of identity. And a big part of this is organizational too, because they should have gotten this Jamar Chase situation figured out. I don't know what the holdup is. They're going to pay him. This is going to come to the point where they pay him. What is the wait? Give him, I don't think his demands are so unnecessary. Just pay him what Justin Jefferson got and a penny more. Like, it's fine. Like, you knew this was coming. Just get it done so you're not losing a week 1 game to the Patriots. And they're out there. It really felt like they went into this game treating it like an extension of the preseason. Like, okay, this is the worst team in the league in our minds. We can play conservative. We'll stop Jacoby Brissett in this offense. If we have to win this game 17-13, fine. And to their credit, they essentially should have. They had a sequence of events that was very unfortunate. Burrow effectively threw 2 back-to-back touchdowns. Neither of them counted, and the result was a fumble out the back of the end zone. He throws a fade to Mike Gesicki, thought he caught it, couldn't secure the process to the ground, and then on the next play, throws a slant. Tight end should have walked into the end zone, but gets hit right before he crosses it, fumbles it, turnover. If that doesn't happen, they still probably win this game. But back to the game plan, like, they weren't really using Jamar Chase. He was out there. They threw him some slants. I think he had a bubble screen. But he didn't have a target beyond 10 yards. He played about half the snaps. And, of course, Burrow was looking for him when he was out there, because otherwise he's out there with guys he's never thrown to before. But he clearly was not a part of the game plan. There was no, like, play-action shots for Jamar Chase. There was no vertical looks. It was just disoriented in the way that he played. You know, him sitting out, saying he's sick, is he playing, is he not playing, very clearly impacted the game in a negative way. And I think he was very clearly, like, avoiding contact. Jamar Chase is one of the most badass motherfuckers after the catch in the league. And he is, you know, the second he loses his footing, he's going to the ground. I see him as a run blocker, like, you know, kind of doing this whole thing. Rightfully so. Like, he does not want to get hurt before this contract comes in. So there's that. And then, yeah, T. Higgins isn't playing. That's a big deal. I do feel like early in the game, too, Joe Burrow was very uncharacteristically playing timid Derek Carr ball. Or this week we'll call it Daniel Jones ball, because Derek Carr played well. But, you know, okay, 3rd and 8, clean pocket. He's just taking a check down. That's not Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow understands how to get those 3rd downs. He always has. And in the second half, when they started losing, he started to run around and try to make plays with his feet. And he did. He got them back in this game. But early in this game, it's just like they totally came out with, like, expecting to win the game with no real plans of how they're going to win the game. And the Patriots are still an NFL team. So they got smacked in the face. I think they'll turn it around, and maybe they were actually looking ahead to the Kansas City Chiefs a little bit, who they play in week 2. I think that happens. So we'll see what they look like against the Chiefs. We'll see if Jamar Chase gets this deal done. I just, if they play the Chiefs without the Jamar Chase contract done, I just do not understand what is going on. Like, do they not have the cash flow? Is it one of those deals with the Bengals? Because that's a shame. That's an absolute shame if that's the situation where they don't have the money to give Jamar Chase a signing bonus. Like, come on. Figure it out. You're an NFL owner. I don't know. That's speculation, but you gotta start having those thoughts with this team. Now, they got to clean up the defense. I am worried about that. The tackling was so bad. So bad. That's going to be a big thing to follow for this Bengals team. Not just do they get back on track offensively, but these issues were there last year. The big plays allowed after the catch, the run game. They got to clean this stuff up, man. They just have got to start tackling better. But that does take me to the Patriots, where Ramondre Stevenson stole the show, man. I mean, there was some good running back performances this week. And maybe Jordan Mason took this away on Monday night, but Ramondre Stevenson looked as good as any running back in the league this week. Really special performance. I've always liked Ramondre Stevenson, but this one, it just was a little different. The vision combined with the elusiveness and the power, the overall consistency and how they used him, it really all came together. It was kind of Marshawn Lynchy, really. Like, just breaking so many tackles, really good foot speed to make guys miss in the backfield. He had back-to-back really game-ending plays. I tweeted him out. You can go find him, where he's kind of dead to rights, but finds a way to get the first down. Like the Patriots needed, Joe Burrow takes a check down on third down. They punt it on their own 10-yard line. They're expecting we'll get the ball back. We can stop Jacoby and Ramondre Stevenson, and we'll get another chance at this. They couldn't stop him. They were in the position, but Ramondre made some excellent plays to make those guys miss and put the game away. And that was after already taking over this ball game. So he got a 3-year, $36 million contract extension this offseason. Paying him in advance looks like an excellent decision by the Patriots. And he provides some dynamism to this team that otherwise does not have it. But beyond that, I do think Jacoby Brissett played very well. Not elite, nothing crazy. Expectations are pretty damn low here, but I think he actually surpassed them. Like, this could have been an ugly day, right? The Bengals were getting some pressure. Trey Hendrickson was dominating Vidarian Lowe. And he was calmly stepping up, breaking sacks, extending drives with his feet, playing on time in the passing game. Like, he played very well. Looked the part. So, just a great start for the Patriots, man. They have issues. Vidarian Lowe cannot be their left tackle for the long haul, but Layden Robinson at right guard looked pretty good. Looked like they might be finding a piece, and that's what this is all about. Stay competitive, build the culture, see what you can do with the defense. I mean, I will give them credit there too. They did play extremely well on that side of the ball. I think Gerard Mayo passed the test in terms of like, okay, you're not Bill Belichick, but can you replicate a lot of the stuff, a lot of the success you had with Bill Belichick? I think he passed the first test there. And, just build things up, get to a point where you're comfortable to play Drake May, and maybe that's week 8. Maybe it's not this year. But I think winning this game was like the best thing that could have happened to Drake May, because I don't think they're going to be super rushed now after they've seen a win with Jacoby. I just think winning, like, it's intoxicating. People are going to put in the work. They're going to see the vision a lot more. It's just a really, you're not going to overreact. The Patriots aren't going anywhere this year, but it's just a very great first step for this team trying to turn the corner. So good vibes for the Patriots for sure. Oh, and Keon White looked amazing. He looks like he is really developing. He was winning with pass rush moves, inside, outside swipes. He's got the traits. I always felt like he always tried to win with his bull rush, and his bull rush was underwhelming. But if he's developing a finesse pass rush, you're in business. You're in business with him, because he does have the size-speed combination that can be rare for them. So great debut, year 2 debut for him. All right, we got still a handful of games to go through, so let's keep trucking through here. Our next game is going to be the Panthers. Let's get through this. Panthers at Saints. I mean, let's just start. Saints, hell yeah, dude. Like, they looked so much better than I could have imagined. Clint Kubiak was in his bag. The play calling looks like, this reminds me a little bit of Arizona, a little bit, where we saw that last year, where it's like, well, everything's kind of in jumble with the roster, but everything makes sense offensively. It's a little, the way they were moving Taysom Hill around as like this all-around super weapon, part receiver, part fullback, part quarterback, part running back, like literally running back. They put him in the backfield, just gave him carries. And it hit me. I'm like, he's kind of Derrick Henry-esque. Like, I know that sounds fucking crazy, but size is similar. The speed, power profile, there's a little Derrick Henry in there. A little bit. But the way they tapped into him in a creative way, taking pressure off of Derek Carr, where it's like, hey, just do your thing. We'll give you some designed deep shots. And he hit the one to Shaheed. The run game, the run blocking was excellent. They have the Old Dominion rookie at left guard. Cesar Ruiz looked really good. Fuaga at left tackle as a run blocker. You love that. And then Trevor Penning in this type of offense, sure. I mean, he's an ass kicker. I don't trust him in pass protection when they have to get into that. But, like, there's a plan here. And with Kubiak, I see the vision. So that's exciting. It really is. And the defense, I like Dennis Allen's defense. They looked like a good Dennis Allen defense. But Panthers. Let's reel this in. They go to Dallas this week. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying, hold on. Let's see what happens next week. Because this Panthers team they didn't change at all. They may have gotten worse. God, that's just, it's overreaction. Overreaction week 1. I don't want to do that. But if this is who they are, they got worse. Because they took everything they had defensively, ripped assets away, Brian Burns, cap space, poured it into the offense. O-line needs to be better. Weaponry needs to be better to make Bryce Young look good. And I agreed with that plan. I very much agreed with that philosophy. This team, there's no point of any of it all if you can't see if Bryce Young is good. And I am a Bryce Young apologist till the end. And I am still going to say that it's not over yet. But Bryce Young played like garbage. And I am not here to defend his performance. There really wasn't much good at all. And I'm obviously taking a pessimistic outlook here, but I will say the results here are somewhat consistent with what we've said about Aaron Rodgers, what we said about Caleb Williams, where how bad it was probably got exaggerated a little bit by the other circumstances. So, Bryce had 3 overthrows in this game. Very bad overthrows. Again, he played bad. But 2 of those overthrows resulted in interceptions. I'm not going to say that's bad luck. It's just, if you're looking at this from an analytical perspective, you don't expect 2 out of 3 overthrows to get intercepted, right? Like, it's just math. So he lost possessions on those. And then he had another overthrow that happened on 3rd down. So the timing of his overthrow was horrible. I know it's a very analytical approach to it, but I'm just saying, okay, Lamar Jackson had 3 overthrows in that game against the Chiefs. He did a lot of other great stuff too. But the point is, his overthrows didn't lead to dramatically bad results on the other side. So you kind of got bad luck in the sense of his mistakes were exaggerated in a way that probably isn't going to happen every week. And then everything else continued to just be horrible. I will say the pass protection was better. That side of it against the Saints pass rush, you can at least walk into week 2, all right, we're at least going to let him have a little bit more time to throw. It's just the first week of the season. And I don't think he made really horrible decisions with the football. It's just he was inaccurate. So, and he had issues in his rookie season with accuracy. Wasn't really an issue at Alabama though. So it's can we just rein this in a little bit? Because I think there is still stuff to work with there. Again, I am a Bryce Young apologist till the end. But the other stuff okay, the defense, this is where I think the team might be better. This defense was hilariously bad. Every play was an 8-yard run. They just had no chance. They were completely melted butter. And they were also bad in the sense of this was the same team as last year where, okay, Bryce is bad. That's your starting point. But the second, they try to get anything going and build anything up, they just have horribly timed mistakes. So Bryce is trying to wage this comeback. He had the interception on the overthrow. He had the 3rd down overthrow. So he started this game bad, right? But it's 17-0 at this point. They're trying to wage a comeback. The next 2 drives go, okay, Bryce actually makes some throws. They're driving. It's all right, maybe we can settle down a little bit. Everybody breathe, And they pick up a 1st down on the ground. And the rookie tight end is holding. So they get backed up, and then Bryce gets sacked. I do want to revisit their inability to handle the blitz because that's another concern here. But the hold, horribly timed, ruins a drive in many ways. And then the next drive, they start moving the ball again. It's like, all right, maybe again. Like, maybe we could just have some offense in this game. And Jonathan Mingo, on a jet sweep, fumbles the ball over. So it's just like, and even in the second half, so Bryce Young has a touchdown drive. The defense gets a stop, but there's just a brutally ugly pass interference call that gives the Saints a first down, and the game was official. It was already over with like a 1% chance of hope that they might get the ball back, get a little momentum after a touchdown drive, at least build something into next week. Nope, just Michael Jackson, the cornerback, is just mauling, I don't know if it was Shaheed or Olave, but just 30 yards down the field on an arm punt from Derek Carr on an uncatchable pass. The corner's just mauling him. Like, come on, guys. So more of that. It's just, that was a theme last year. You felt it watching this team where it's like they're already bad, but the second they do anything right, they're making these stupid mistakes. And it's like, that's the same. It's the same damn team. Now, I do want to revisit, it wasn't just the overthrows on Bryce. Him and his offense's inability to handle the blitz continues to just baffle me. He just doesn't get it. He doesn't get the numbers. He doesn't get the protections. He doesn't understand that the ball's got to come out or how to handle things pre-snap. And the team as well isn't giving him like easy outlets. Like, I'm watching these blitzes. I'm not seeing Bryce do anything like pre-snap. Like, that's part of the quarterback's job. So it's like, okay, that's on you, Bryce. The ball's snapped. He's holding it. He's not doing anything with the ball. But then I watch these plays and it's like, where's the idea of like, okay, Deontay Johnson's got a one-on-one. He's running a two-way go and that ball's out. Like, where's that? Like, that was the whole point of bringing Deontay Johnson in. There was none of that as an answer to the Saints who blitzed him and successfully blitzed him. So I think that's a two-way street. I think Bryce has got to be better at that, but Canales, like, that's what you're here for too. So just catastrophic week for the Panthers, all capped off by their best player tearing his ACL. Like, it's just so brutal. I'm going to the game. My family's coming in town. I'm going to see them play the Chargers. And, God, Harbaugh is just licking his chops. Like, this might be one of those. Remember when Jimmy Garoppolo threw the ball like 7 times against the Packers in the NFC Championship? This might be one of those games where Justin Herbert throws the ball 4 times and the Chargers run the ball 53 times with 3 different running backs for 400 yards. Like, this could get out of hand. Yeah. So let's move on. Minnesota at the New York Giants, another depressing team to talk about. But one side of this is very encouraging in the Minnesota Vikings. And, the Sam Darnold project that is the 2024 season, off to a great start. Man, he looked the part. Played on time, like, had that cerebralism as a quarterback where he's on time, he's snapping his head through reads, he's throwing with anticipation and accuracy. He throws that deep corner. The best throw he had of the day was with anticipation. He's throwing that deep corner into a space. They were high-lowing the Giants all day. And I think it was cover 3. He gets, they're running someone to the flat, and then they're having Justin Jefferson on the deep corner, and they draw the curl flat defender, takes the underneath. So Darnold knows he has a one-on-one to the outside with the deep corner for Jefferson, with the outside corner covering it, and he just leads them way outside, like a perfectly leveraged throw, understood the coverage, understood where the ball needs to go. And it wasn't just Jefferson mossing a corner. Like, it was a beautiful throw that led him and made the catch easy on Justin Jefferson. So there was that. There was multiple other really good throws on very similar high-low concepts. He took care of the football. He had one play where he got hit hit while throwing that could have been picked, but that's only partially on him. And the take is from me and many people that he's going to play well. He's going to get that kind of like Baker Mayfield resurgence, the Geno Smith resurgence here. And so far, so good. Really no reason to believe from anything you saw on tape that this was fluky or can't be repeated. So very encouraging there. Kevin O'Connell was just in his bag, like just such a nice game plan, pressing all the right buttons at the right time. Aaron Jones was really, the Packers fan in me. This was really the first time where I've seen a former player playing, and it like genuinely hurts me because Jones is such a good dude, but he's such a fun player too. And they moved on from him because of durability concerns, but he's healthy right now. And God, he is so good. Like his vision, his speed, it's real. And the Vikings have not had this. They haven't. And for the run game to be a legitimate weapon here is a game changer. That could more than make up for the difference of a Kirk Cousins, honestly. So really like what you saw there. And Brian Flores in year 2 with this defense is having fun, man. Like he's got more pieces now. He's got 2 linebackers that he really likes. He's got like 3 edge rushers as opposed to 1. It's a big difference. He's got corners that can actually run man coverage now. And, like they really played well. I know the Giants offense is not the biggest test, but it felt like Flores had the flexibility to call more normal defense. They still did a lot of that base 5-1 nickel stuff with Metellus playing all over the place. Not playing all over the place, playing that bandit linebacker position, but making plays all over the place. And that helps the run defense tremendously. Harrison Phillips just got a contract extension. He plays a really good role in this defense. So they're able to be a little bit more traditional in their coverages when they want to, but they still pressed those crazy man buttons at the right time, showing 8 guys at the line of scrimmage. In the case of this game, they did bring the heat, but they're going to mix it up. Like the second iteration of this defense is looking good so far. They're going to have bigger tests ahead for sure, but just all around a great week for the Vikings. And that takes us to the Giants. Not a ton to say. Daniel Jones, it was a really hard watch because they're just so sunk in on this right now. The contract extension has been an absolute nightmare. They went into the year saying, well, we kind of know he's not the future, but we want to have a real season. Can we just give him Malik Neighbors, a real offensive line, still Brian Dable calling plays, and have a serviceable offense? Like, start to build this thing up a little bit. And it's just week 1, but God, man, like all of the Daniel Jones flaws were to the max in this game. And that the 2 biggest thing with him is the complete and utter lack of pocket presence. I mean, we praise all these quarterbacks for feeling the rush, knowing how to extend the play, how to buy time to create more high percentage looks so that you're throwing the ball past the line of scrimmage or that you're scrambling for a first down. Daniel Jones has no godly idea of where the rush is coming from, where those escape lanes are, where the step-up lanes are. Never has. And coming off the knee injury, it's like, it's even worse. And then he's, as a result of that, he's taken these checkdowns on third downs that have no godly chance of moving the chains. You might as well just punt on third down with the way Daniel Jones is dropping back. And like, there were some throws to Malik Neighbors. Like when they targeted Malik Neighbors down the field, he capitalized on it. But he's not looking down the field. He's playing incredibly timid. And it's like an absolute worst case scenario. I actually thought, and again, we'll see where this goes. I don't want to write anything off after week 1, but I really thought he was going to play okay-ish, 24th best quarterback in the league. I have serious doubts after seeing what this looked like week 1. And if this is what he's going to continue to play like for a couple weeks, I am on the fuck it, let's play Drew Lock, see if we catch lightning in a bottle train. because otherwise it's like you're just accomplishing nothing. So it was really hard to watch, and I was pretty underwhelmed by the Giants defense too. I don't know. I didn't see a whole lot of creativity there. O'Connell seemed to know exactly what was coming and had all the right calls for everything. So I don't know. I didn't see a lot of creative blitzing. This edge rush duo didn't really accomplish much in this game. Felt like a lot of kind of vanilla zone defenses and like, all right, like, cool. We're going to pick you apart with Sam Darnold. So just a rough week. At least Dexter Lawrence is still an absolute monster, man. He eats the Vikings offensive line. He absolutely does. But let's move on to our next game. We got 4 more games to talk about. So Denver at Seattle. This was not what you wanted to see for Broncos fans. Let's talk about Bo Nix first. Really bad rookie start. And I think you guys know, I mean, I just said it with the Giants and all that, but like, I really do try to give these rookies time, and I will give Bo Nix time. But this was one of the most discouraging rookie starts I can remember. And I like Bo Nix. I have no reason to say this. I really like Bo Nix. But he made some reads in this game that were like, I mean, the announcer twice in this game said, "Oh no," the second the ball came out of his hand. Not after the ball was picked. After the ball left his hand. Like, these reads were that bad. To the point where I'm like, you're just not seeing it. You're forcing it. Like, this is, yes, you're a rookie, but you are a 24-year-old rookie that had 60 starts in college. Like, the point of taking Bo Nix was that he had a historically great turnover-worthy play percentage. He did not put the ball in harm's way. That was like the best selling point on Bo Nix. And this is what he does. I mean, there were 4 egregious decisions. Not like, I mean, okay, if we want to really, really emphasize, you know, the absolute worst decision a quarterback can make, there was 2 of them. And then there was 2 other very bad reads that got him in trouble. But the 2 just like, I mean, head scratching doesn't do it justice. Mind-numbing interceptions. He just, one of them, he just, third down, he just chucks it into the back corner of the end zone. There was nothing there. The receiver wasn't open. There was 2 defenders in the area. Like, dude, just take the sack. And that's not a throw that he made at Oregon. It just wasn't in his DNA to have these reckless plays. And then an even worse one later in the game, he throws another corner route literally into triple coverage. The receiver was covered in front of him, he was covered on him, and there was a safety over the top. And, you know, it's not like he was under immense pressure and just was forced to get the ball out immediately. Like, I just don't know how you are an NFL quarterback and make that throw. It was one of those plays where you're like, this guy just doesn't have it. Like, this guy is not going to work. It was Auburn Bo Nix is really what it was. And then there was 2 other bad reads, like bad reads within the structure of the play. He should have thrown a pick to a backside dig. He goes read 1 over to read 2, which I like that he's trying to get through his progressions because he's a little bit first ready at Oregon. There was times where he'd go, you know, get through his progressions. There was times where he would not do that. But problem is, if you're going to do that and then just assume that the backside dig is there and throw it right to a linebacker, like, nope, that's not what we're asking for. And then he had a 4th one in the red zone where they're doing that kind of, you know, red zone bracket style coverage. They're running a skinny post from the slot, and the receiver did have inside leverage for the post on the outside defender, but the safety is just sitting on it. Like, it's bracket coverage for a reason. So yes, he had the leverage on the outside corner, but you have to know what the safety is doing too. And he's just sitting on it, jumps it, very easily could have been intercepted. So he ended up with 2 picks in this game, should have had 4. Yeah, just really ugly. And it's concerning because of the profile, where the idea was he was going to be a high floor, smart quarterback, and he's out here doing this. It's like extremely alarming. And it's part of what makes these quarterback evaluations so hard because, this isn't even like Justin Herbert at Oregon, where it was a little bit more of a subjective hate on him. Bo Nix, it's like, you can have all the criticisms on Bo Nix you want. You can say his arm talent stinks. You can not like Auburn Bo Nix. You can, ding him for being a little bit too first ready. Sure. But the one thing you cannot hold over Bo Nix was that in the final 2 years at Oregon, this guy was historically elite at not putting the ball in harm's way. And in his first NFL game, that's what happens? Like, that is just a completely different prospect. So, it's week 1. Hopefully he just burns the tape, learns from his mistakes, and then burns the tape and puts it all behind him. We'll see. As for the rest of the Broncos team, not a ton to really say. I don't think I had too many surprising takeaways from the rest of the team. Jonathan Cooper looked good. For the Seahawks, though, really great that they bounced back. Kind of reminds me of the Bears a little bit, where it's like, had they lost this game, it would have been really disappointing, and they started really poor. But they really settled in. And, the first quarter was just very ugly for the Seahawks offense. The offensive line was a non-starter. Geno was getting hit like every time he dropped back. And Geno himself had a really ugly interception. I mean, the pass rush got in, but he threw a pick that was just like, what was the plan there, Geno? Like, he was pressured, but it's not like it was a hit while thrown and it completely derailed his pass. He just was kind of getting pressured and just threw it right to the linebacker who had nobody within 20 yards of him. So this is a really ugly start, but they settled in. I think the pass protection got a little bit better, but they ran the ball. Kenneth Walker had, in my opinion, one of the best games of his career. He looked really good. They really leaned into him. And Tyler Lockett stepped up. I mean, Pat Surtain was all over DK Metcalf. Played great, as you expect Surtain to do. Early in the game, they throw a third down fade to DK Metcalf, and they're like, all right, that's not going to be there. Pat Surtain is going to follow him around. And they went to Tyler Lockett, who had multiple back shoulder connections that were big time. And then he had to kind of put it away at the end. He's running a drag, and a beautiful throw from Geno to put it in a spot where only the receiver could get it, because it was a tightly contested pass. But Lockett just one hand reels it in, body control galore. He's still got it, man. He's so good, Tyler Lockett. Had multiple other catches in this game too. If week 1 is any indication, the pecking order is, okay, we want to get the ball to DK, then we want to get the ball to Lockett, we want to run the ball, and then it's Jackson Smith and Jigba. A lot of people predicted, Jackson Smith and Jigba was getting drafted ahead of Tyler Lockett. I certainly was not on board with that. And that's, continuing to kind of be low on JSN. I don't hate JSN. I don't even think that he'll never work out. But within the structure of the Seahawks offense, I continue to just be kind of low on his impact on this team. He had one nice catch and run. That was about it. But Lockett, as long as he's still making plays, you don't need JSN, and that's a good place for the Seahawks to be. Defensively, great early returns from the Mike McDonald defense. They clearly were confusing Bo Nix. These zone coverages are very complicated, and especially what this did for their front, it translated immediately. Like, Mike McDonald's blitz designs and the scheme, really, in the way that they are able to show any look and run any blitz out of any look, the way that they have kind of meshed their terminology into one clean playbook, is exciting. And they got, 9 pressures from Boye Mafe in this game, many of which, he was winning one-on-ones. He looked really good. But I think just his path to the quarterback has been opened up because of the blitzes and just demanding attention elsewhere. I mean, Leonard Williams had a good game. Derek Hall had 4 pressures in this game. It worked. The defensive scheme absolutely worked. It wasn't the biggest test against Bo Nix week 1, but it's, I like the way they settled in. I still have offensive line concerns. I really do. But there's a lot of talent offensively, and they seem well coached. Play calling was good, and this defense should be substantially better. So, I think the Seahawks are very much in the mix in the NFC. All right, we got Washington at Tampa Bay. The Bucs rolled in this one. I am prepared to admit that I was wrong on the Bucs. I picked them to not go back to the playoffs. I was lower on them this year. I didn't hate them, but I'm just worried that they'll repeat some of the success they had last year. I'm fully prepared in a week or two to admit, like, hey, this Bucs team's awesome. I like what I'm seeing. It's just the Commanders are not good, man. Very similar to the Saints. Like, let's see what week 2 looks like. I was impressed by Baker. I was very impressed by Baker. Just so on time. There was no hiccups at all with the new system. If anything, the play calling was maybe even better with Liam Cohen. But Baker just on time, knowing where he needs to go with the ball. And then when he wasn't able to play on time, he was really good at getting out of sacks, extending plays, keeping drives alive. And the 2 touchdowns to Mike Evans, just very nice touch. Just beautiful, catchable balls for Mike Evans. That's all he needs. So I was very impressed by Baker. And if Baker continues to just kind of get it back, the last 6 weeks of last season, he got really hot. I was wondering, what is he going to look like this year? What version of him do we get? We got a very good version of Baker. So if that continues against real defenses, sorry, Commanders fans, this Bucs team is going to be in business for sure. Defensively, didn't have any major takeaways for the Bucs. They kind of did their thing. It's a Todd Bowles defense that we're very familiar with. I don't think they were really exceptional in any regard, and they're getting banged up in the secondary, so they're going to have to overcome that. The Bucs rolled. Great start to their season. Let's talk about Jaden Daniels' start. I thought he was fine. I'm not a big Jaden Daniels guy, but all these rookies come in with a blank slate, right? Like, I just trashed Bo Nix, who I was high on. Daniels definitely didn't do much. It wasn't a great start, but he wasn't the problem. He was fine. He took care of the football, scrambled a lot. His biggest completions came on checkdowns with really good run after catch. But the pocket presence looked good. The mobility looked good. He had multiple, 2 inaccurate deep balls. That's one thing. So he had, in a preseason game, he had a really inaccurate deep ball trying to throw a slot fade, and then he had another deep ball to Terry McLaurin that just sailed out of bounds. It's 2 looks now where it's like that connection hasn't been there. I think it certainly can be there. I mean, that was his biggest selling point, was he's this great athlete, this great scrambler, maybe not the best processing and decision-making, but or at least best processing and anticipation. He takes care of the football, and he did in this game. But the biggest thing on Daniels was this dude throws such a beautiful deep ball. And we just haven't seen that yet. And you got Terry McLaurin. There was a play, McLaurin's got one-on-one, and it's put it on him. He sailed it out of bounds. Put it on him. That was your chance that was a chance for a big play to this great wide receiver that's been waiting on good quarterback play. It's let's see it. It's kind of the one negative thing I had on him. He had a near interception, throwing a backside dig, kind of similar to Bo Nix, but it's fine. It was just one missed read. We'll continue to evaluate him. I'm not Not down on Jaden Daniels, not up on Jaden Daniels. I don't think my opinion on Jaden Daniels has changed much. Honestly, the main takeaway here is like Dan Quinn's got a lot of work to do. Like, I like Dan Quinn, but this ain't the Cowboys defense anymore. And they were getting lit up left and right. They had coverage miscommunications, no pass rush, tackling issues. It was not a good day. Like, they were getting gashed on the ground by Rachaad White. It's not great. It's not great, Dan. So they got a lot of work to do. And the other thing is they were using Jamin Davis off the edge, basically saying, oh, you're Micah Parsons. Like, no, you're not. He's 6'3", 235. He's not Micah Parsons. He's never been an edge rusher in his life. At least Micah Parsons was like, he did that in high school. Like, no, Jamin Davis is a linebacker. And I feel like Jamin Davis finally last year showed some strides, which we know at this position, it takes time, 3 years. He's super young, super athletic. And they've just said, yeah, let's go see if you can play edge. We've got 50-year-old Bobby Wagner who can't run sideline to sideline anymore. Frankie Louvu. Like, what's the point of that? Don't you want to play Jamin Davis at linebacker, especially when the linebackers aren't playing well? Like, we'll see if they stick with that. I'm a little disappointed in that. We talked about that in the deep dive where it's like he feels like he took a step last year and can be an actual building block for this defense that clearly needs building blocks. Like, Jonathan Allen was good in this game. Okay, he's 30. What else you got? I think Jamin Davis was probably the next piece. I mean, you drafted Mike Sainer still. He struggled. Quan Martin, who is now playing free safety because you drafted Mike Sainer still, he struggled. You got no outside corners. You're not. I mean, did Emmanuel Forbes play in this game? Let me check. Your first round pick last year. Let's check. He played 34 snaps. He's rotating. PFF coverage grade of 30. So, yeah, it's just like they got a lot of work to do. I'm just not optimistic about this entire thing because I just don't really see the vision for any of this. And Cliff's play calling, like, I didn't really feel anything from a play calling perspective that made me feel great about Cliff either. Like, I don't think they had this great design run game with Jaden Daniels, which, like, isn't that theoretically why you took him over Drake May? Was you were going to run the ball with him a ton? I mean, they mixed some stuff in, but most of his runs were scrambles. I don't know, man. I don't know. Oh, and Diami Brown, like, rotating with Alemedy Zaccheaus, and they're forcing Luke McCaffrey on the field, who clearly isn't ready, and I thought was overdrafted to begin with. It's week one. It's week one. But I just am not loving what I'm seeing from Washington. And that's why I can't jump the gun on being too positive on Tampa. All right, we got 2 games left. We have the Raiders-Chargers game. Chargers pull away at the end, 22-10. You cannot talk about this football game without slamming Antonio Pierce for one of the most inexcusable coaching decisions, coach punt decisions you will ever see. Literally. There's I think it's called the Surrender Index or something. There's a site that tracks, like, cowardly punt decisions and assigns a score to how cowardly a punt decision is. This was the most cowardly punt since 1999. And in this modern era of football and analytics and decision-making, you might literally never see a worse punt decision in your lifetime. I don't think that's an overreaction. They were down 6 points on the opponent's 42-yard line. 4th and 1 with 6 minutes to go. They are on the fringe of field goal range. 4th and 1, 6 minutes to go, down 6. And they punt. I had to say that twice because you may have thought you heard me incorrectly. So many things wrong with this. Number one is they've built this team in this idea that they are going to play bully ball. They're going to run the ball. They're going to have this RPO game. They're going to have Brock Bowers and Mayer, and you're not going to know what to do with this in 12 personnel. You've got Devontae Adams, who can win a slant and catch a ball. Like, they've built this around the idea of physical, scrappy, underdog football. They brought Antonio Pierce back, who filled in as an interim head coach. They brought him back under the premise of, okay, you are not necessarily qualified to be a head coach. You don't really have the resume of a head coach yet, but the team played hard for you, and they made them, they decided not to hire the interim head coach the last time with Rich Bisaccia, and they felt like they would lose the locker room if they didn't do this. And they're trying to kind of recreate Dan Campbell West, right? Dan Campbell doesn't call the plays on offense. He doesn't call the plays on defense. He's the rah-rah, locker room inspirational guy. Well, how fucking inspirational is it if you're going to come out and preach hard-nosed football, we're scrappy, we're the tough dudes, and you have the most cowardly punt decision in the 21st century? What type of message does that send to the locker room? You think this team is going to take you seriously after that? You think this defense is going to go out and play hard after that? So there's a philosophical problem with this, with how the Raiders are constructed. Like, if you're at least going to be, let's see if we can scrap out a 9-win wild card season with Gardner Minshew, and you're punting in this situation, what is the fucking point? So there's that issue. And then there's just the math of it all. Okay, so there's 6 minutes left. Not only do you have a very good chance of converting on 4th and 1, but if you don't get it, you have about 4 first downs to get a stop anyway, and you have 30 yards of space, 25 yards of space to still get a stop. So even if you don't get it, the risk is almost nothing. Like, you're going to have to get a stop either way, whether you get it or you don't. 20 yards of field position means literally 1% of a difference in this game. So this is a genuinely fireable offense for an already underqualified head coach. It is. I don't have words for this one. I don't have words for this one. I'm out. I'm out on the Raiders. I guess I wore black and silver today in honor of you Raiders fans, because I don't care at this point if this team goes and wins 6 games and tries, because they're not trying. That's not trying. It's just not trying, and it's horrible. So this team has been through a lot, but that was, I can't say it's up there. They've been through a lot, but it's memorable. The other thing too is, if you're going to be this scrappy, tough team that finds hard ways to win the game, this team made way too many stupid mistakes to win this game. I mean, Gardner Minshew, tries to pull a ball back because he realized it was going to get picked, and he ends up throwing it backwards. It gets picked up for a touchdown from the Chargers. You had Zamir White. It gets, fumbles a ball away. You have a missed field goal late in this game. By the way, they kicked a field goal with 11 minutes to go on 4th and 1 on the 20-yard line. There was another bad decision there in there too. This was horrible. And the down-to-down stuff wasn't putrid. I thought Minshew actually played all right. Like, they got Adams involved. They got Bowers involved. The down-to-down stuff wasn't horrible. It's just the turnovers and the stupid 4th down decisions that you just can't live with. As for the Chargers, this was everything you imagined that this was going to look like with Harbaugh. Like, all the boxes checked week 1. They come out, run the piss out of the football. They just ask Herbert to be a game manager. Not a lot of deep targets. Just nickel and dime. Get the ball to Ladd. Take care of the football. We're going to run the ball. We're going to play defense. We're going to punt. We're going to capitalize on the other team's mistakes, which they did. This is Harbaugh ball, baby. And in a week 1 game against the Raiders, they shut down the run. They played more physical than this team ever has. They played smarter than this team ever has. They were complete on all threes. They weren't explosive. They weren't flashy. But this is what they want. And it's a great start to implement this culture. Now, J.K. Dobbins is a big deal. What happened there? Like, he looks awesome. He looks like the prime, healthy version of J.K. Dobbins. And if he can stay healthy, they are in business. They have a running back. And it's going to make Mike Vidal take age very poorly. I was kind of banking on a J.K. Dobbins injury. But at this point, I'm not pulling for that. I never pull for any injury, but I'd rather just see J.K. Dobbins have this bounce back. Like, he's a good back, man. Like, his vision is really good. He runs with anticipation, which is something we don't really talk about, but like, he gets it, and he's got some juice. He's not overly explosive, but he's got some juice. He's got good contact balance, good power. He's in business, man. Just hope he can stay healthy. And the offensive line, that's what they invested in. Joe Alt, a great week 1. Ass kickers there. They bought a ton of time for Herbert. My next question is eventually going to become, because they don't get to play the Raiders every week, my next question is going to be like, what does the other script look like? Like, when they play the Chiefs, do they have the drop back game? We'll see. That's the question with Greg Roman, right? But they got the run game working. They played run defense, good special teams, you name it. This was Harbaugh ball at its finest, and they are licking their chops getting to play the Panthers this week, because they're going to probably win. Well, they could blow the Panthers out because they could just run for 400 yards. But talk about a team that's going to make mistakes, and they're looking to capitalize on it. Fully expecting the Chargers to start the season 2-0 here. And then we got a final game here, Dallas at Cleveland. For Browns fans, this was a worst-case scenario. For NFL fans who laugh at Deshaun Watson failing, it was a good week. It was a good week. That scumbag kind of deserves this, man. Another lawsuit comes out. The details are just so gross. Like, this dude is just such a creep. We'll see if it's true, yada, yada, yada. If it is true, he is literally a rapist in this situation and should spend time in jail. And for the Browns fans' sake, I hope they can get out of this contract and that Deshaun doesn't see all this money. Maybe they make him return some of it, for God's sake. But, like, it's hard to, as someone that has no horse in this race, it's hard to not just kind of laugh a little bit. But it does also really suck for the Browns fans, for the Browns players that didn't ask for this. I think for Kevin Stefanski, I think he's kind of a rock and a hard place here. Like, I don't know how much power he has to bench him or move on, because I think the ownership was so involved in this acquisition and so invested in this. But, I mean, he really looks horrible, man. He looks horrible. He looks like when a team has a quarterback injury and they start their backup and the backup plays terrible, and then they go to the free agent block and they're like, I don't know, what random veteran that was a starter 7 years ago can we sign to see if anything can happen here? And then that guy comes in and it's like he doesn't know the offense. He can't play on time. His arm looks washed. He can't throw an accurate football. Like, Deshaun Watson legitimately looks like the 49th best quarterback in the NFL right now. He looks like a guy that is not prepared. He does not understand this offense. He can't play on time. He can't throw with anticipation. He can't get these players involved. There's no verticality to this offense. He's not accurate. whatever happened to his shoulder is clearly affecting his arm talent and his accuracy. He's holding the ball way too long. He's taking bad sacks. You can't play football like this. And the drain that this must have on this locker room, on a defense that has a bunch of badasses out there that sees what's going on the other side of the ball, on the offensive line that are blocking and then turning around to see Deshaun Watson bailing out of clean pockets just to get sacked. Like it was a fourth down. He bails out of a clean pocket, perfectly clean pocket, bails out of it, and then doesn't even put the ball up. Like the game's already over. And it's like he's worried about himself and his interception numbers. Like, dude, I think he got his money and ran. I really do. I don't think he gives a shit. I think he's a loser. I think he's a scumbag. You can hate me. You can unsubscribe to this podcast. I believe it. And the Browns have got to get out of this. And if that means eating $170 million, tripling the NFL record in dead cap, fine. It's still better than the drain. You know, the drain that he has on this locker room transcends the salary cap hit. It's unwatchable, man. The more I've thought about it, I wish I dropped him even more in the power rankings. I really do. But I do believe in the talent of this team. And the Njoku injury sucks too, because if they had anything, it was, hey, we can throw screens and slants and drags to Njoku, and he's this great run-after-catch threat. He gets a high ankle sprain. He's going to miss a bunch of time. We'll see how explosive he is when he comes back. So everything's going wrong in Cleveland. As for Dallas, hey, another great week one for the Dallas Cowboys. I loved their game plan, and they came into this feeling really good about their defense, as they should. And they knew that they've got rookie offensive linemen going against the best pass rush in the league, and they actually had a really good game plan. I want to give Mike McCarthy credit. They booted Dak out. They ran screens. They ran the ball. They got the ball out of Dak's hands quickly. It was like 2.36 seconds to throw. They didn't give this pass rush the opportunity to ruin this game. And they said, the Browns are going to have to beat us by tackling with their linebackers in the secondary, and they're going to have to beat us on offense. And, you know, they executed a really good game plan, and Dak executed a really good game plan. I don't think Dak had his best game. He had some bad throws. You know, Denzel Ward got his hand on a couple balls, very close to interceptions. He overthrew a play-action boot that would have kept the drive alive. He didn't play bad. He executed the game plan very well, and it's not easy to play with a low time to throw without throwing interceptions, because especially against a good coverage team like Cleveland. So, like, he found his spots. He threw a great touchdown to Brandon Cooks. They were able to have this game plan because they have such a cerebral quarterback in Dak Prescott, even if he didn't do too much in this game. And they didn't need him to do too much, because by the time the second quarter rolled around, the Browns couldn't move the ball. They have the return from Turpin, and the game was over. They were able to just run the ball, milk the clock, force the Browns offense to do anything, and they couldn't. So, you know, I like the approach. They understood their opponent. They understood their team's strengths. I do want to say, Tyler Guyton was getting a lot of praise in this game. I don't know why. I watched the game. He was really bad. You know, and I'm not trying to take a victory lap on my draft take. Like, I think Guyton very well could have a good rookie season and could be a hit. He's got traits. I got a lot of camp hype. I think people were trying to confirm the camp hype by saying he stopped Myles Garrett. No, he didn't. He saw Myles Garrett 4 times. 3 of those times he got annihilated. He had a PFF pass blocking grade of 26. You know, there's a clip out there. Someone cut up all of his true pass sets. You can go watch it. Like, he did okay against Agbo Okoronkwo. okay, not great. But he was either getting chip help or Dak was getting the ball out quickly or he was getting annihilated by Myles Garrett. So I just wanted to bring that up. I've gotten a lot of comments about Tyler Guyton. I'm just like, I was paying attention. I'm just telling you what I saw. Not a great start. Like in my notes here, 48th out of 50 in pass block win rate this week. Like that's the stats we're talking about from here. So I don't really get why he was getting so much praise on Twitter. I think it's because Duke Manyweather tweeted out some hype on him. It's his guy. He works with Tyler Guyton. He's like, oh, he shut down Myles Garrett. Like, did you watch? Like, were you out of the state? And someone told you he did that? Like, no, he didn't. Anyway, great start for the Cowboys. Love what they did on defense. Micah Parsons. Oh my God. Like, he didn't necessarily have the game-wrecking plays necessarily, like the sacks, the turnovers, and all that stuff. But Jesus, man, 11 pressures. He was living in the Browns' backfield. He's going to be so good this year. And that's going to do it for this week's podcast. Coming out a little bit later here today. That's not the plan. We're just kind of all in all behind schedule, a little sleep deprived, a little backed up from the deep dives, all that. So ideally, I'll be able to get this out to you guys by like 1 o'clock on Wednesdays. And then I also, I'm gonna take the rest of the week off. I need some time. I really do. But the goal is to have maybe like every other week have mailbag shows. And then I've had thoughts about like a second podcast during the week if I could get guests and stuff. I'm going to brainstorm some stuff while I take the next 5 days off or whatever. So I will see, well, Patreon guys, I will see you guys for the weekly picks. That is happening. That'll be up tomorrow. But other than that, I will see you guys for Power Rankings next Tuesday, and then the podcast again on Wednesday. That will be all on the Fully Inflated channel. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or following the podcast on your audio feeds to the Fully Inflated channel. We're out of here. Thank you so much for listening to this through. I hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you soon. Peace out.